Oh, yes, sir, and yes, ma'am. You had better get them the heck up, get them going. It's Thursday on B&E. Early bird always gets the worm. We appreciate you being up early with us. We got a lot to do. It's a Thursday. That makes it a Buck-Off Thursday, the tradition every single week, unlike any other, right here on the Show of the People. Who has earned a pat on the back? Who has earned a kick in the hindquarters? You decide each and every Thursday with a Buck-Off or a Buck-On. We also have the always fun Buck-Offs that are you decide. We report, you decide. Is it a Buck-On or a Buck-Off? Like Charles Barkley on television last night, trying to clean his cell phone by licking it on national television. Ugh. Seems pretty gross to me with his own tongue, not a Kleenex or a wipe or something. No. Licking the phone. Seems pretty unsanitary, Charles, but that's how a Buck-Off goes. You decide. Is that pretty cool or is that not? That's how we'll have fun this morning. 4 hours of fun and conversation begins right now on this Thursday, May the 4th, of course, Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you, as they always say. We'll have some fun with that, obviously, and a lot to do. We got one NBA playoff game last night, one tonight. We've got hockey, baseball, football news, and the rest of it. And of course, the rest of your Buck-Ons and Buck-Offs all morning long. Specs text line is open at 512-337-3776. Hit us there. Also, you can hit us on our social media pages, which we'll tell you about coming up. Good stuff this morning and a lot to do. Appreciate you being there always. However you find us on 104.9, maybe 101.9 FM, could be AM 1260, and digitally, make it as easy as possible to listen to this show and all the shows here on the Horn. Just download that Horn app for free, and with the touch of a button, you're listening to us wherever you are, on your smartphone, also on your smart speaker at home or work, and always digitally there on the website. You can watch our Twitch channel and see the shows in live living color, and also listen anytime at hornfm.com. Bucky Godbolt out again today. He'll rejoin me tomorrow at the 22nd playing of the Mullet Open. Bucky getting ready to launch the mini mullet tournament today out near Bastrop at the Hyatt Lost Pines Resort, the Lost Pines Golf Club. Hopefully Bucky will check in with us at some point this morning, but thrilled to have my good buddy Mike Craven hanging out with us this morning for the entirety of the show. Look at you up early, Mr. Writer Guy. You're in here early. You said it's like working at the ranch with your grandpa.
It does feel like a ranch day. I'm not a hunter or a fisherman, but it feels like that's what this day would be as well. I just kind of wanted to see if I could do it.
Yeah.
You know, I wanted
Challenge
to see,
yourself.
Right. I wanted to see if I could pull off the full 4-hour slot from 6 to 10 a.m.
Well, be
so
careful.
We'll see.
You see what it looks, see what happens to Ty in there.
Yeah, we were kind of talking about the strategies that are involved to get here. I've always wondered that about you. Like, when do you go to bed? How do you nap? What do you like?
Well,
what is your life like after this?
Well, pretty
it's
early last night. Fortunately, last night the NBA game was not much drama or no drama whatsoever. Blowout city. So I think I watched an episode of Ted Lasso, which takes about 27 minutes, and see you later. Curtains on that with Jason Sudeikis on Apple TV. So that was my line. But pretty early. But some nights, obviously, try to stay up and see as much as you can, and then grab a nap where you can. But those are few and far between these days as well. But it's what we do. It's what we do. It's how we. That's how we roll. But Buck, on to you for being here. I should mention, and Bucky would certainly right now at this point, the good morning to the men and women of Fort Hood, Texas, and all our military installations throughout the great state, around the country, and all over the world, doing what they do to serve us and protect us so we can do what we do, which is get up early and talk sports with you. Bucky, as I said, will rejoin me tomorrow morning live on location out at the Hyatt Lost Pines Resort for the Mullet Open, which is tomorrow, which we're excited about. Now, I mentioned you grew up working on a ranch. Now, if you ever have listened to any of these 7 episodes of our Eyes on Texas multicast that you and I do, focusing on Texas football, part of the Dave Campbell's Texas Football Radio Podcast Network and the Horn YouTube page where you can find it, I always introduce you saying grew up in the Texas football locker room, which probably needs some explanation that your grandfather was the team doctor for the Longhorn football program for a long, long time.
Yeah, I mean, he started out as the strength and conditioning guy. He was the co-founder of the NCAA strength and conditioning. Convinced Coach Royal.
Dr. Craven.
Yeah, convinced Coach Royal to let him bring water to practices, not because the guys were getting thirsty and dehydrated, but because they were jumping in the creek outside the practice field and getting sick from drinking that water. So Coach Royal allowed him to empty out 6 Coca-Cola bottles and fill that up for water, and that's what the whole team had during practice. That was the compromise there. But yeah, he was he transitioned into being the rehab specialist. He was the head of kinesiology department at UT forever. So as a kid, he was my babysitter. Both my parents worked, so I would just go down to UT in his truck, hang out all day, watch him do whatever, hang out in Gregory Gym, shoot baskets, then come back in the afternoon.
Yeah, come back. And so you knew Bucky when Bucky was coaching at Texas as a wee little lad that you were.
Lance Gunn was my first favorite football player of all time. And so it was fun.
I always say it's one of the things that makes you a great writer talking about football because you kind of understand the behind the scenes, a little bit of the human element of how it all operates on a day-by-day basis. And you got to see it up close from a young age. And, it's football and people are passionate about it. It's and rightfully so. The expectations are high. At the same time, these are young people rolling in there trying to wear that uniform and do it proud. You get that pretty more than a lot of people that haven't seen that up close and personal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then early on, I learned that the football was probably the least interesting part of the whole deal.
Really?
You're watching all of these stories and you're watching all these people and these guys come in at 18, 19, 20 years old and they have insane stories. The coaches have been everywhere. The stuff that goes on behind the scenes that nobody sees is insane. So it was like, I want to be a sports writer, but I want to be a beat writer. I want to be somebody who can kind of write about the weird kind of behind the scenes feature stuff. And so that's kind of been the goal throughout the career, is kind of write about the stuff around football that I find to be super interesting.
And take the audience behind the curtain a little bit, which is what you do very well at Dave Campbell's Texas Football now. And you're busy writing, 12 previews for the 12 Division I college football teams here in the state. You went to every campus, 12 of the 13 over the course of April. And now you're also writing the cover story, which we cannot reveal what this year's magazine will have on the cover, Dave Campbell's Texas Football, but you're writing that right now, which is exciting. So we'll talk plenty of college football this morning, kind of a tour of the Texas schools. And as we said yesterday when Mike was in, if you have a question or a thought on your team, whether it's the Baylor Bears or the Texas Tech Red Raiders, the TCU Horned Frogs, Houston Cougars, Aggies, you go, just fire them off. Specs text line, talk anything and get into some college football. And, of course, the Longhorns, your tour of 12 different campuses wrapped up here in Austin with a sit-down with Steve Sarkisian and Jordan Whittington. So we'll dive into some Texas football from your perspective, how it shakes out here as we look forward to the summertime. Most all schools, all programs off right now, right? They'll take May off and recharge the battery, come back into June for summer, and crank it back up. So we'll talk plenty of college football and all the top stories. And, of course, the Buck-ons and Buck-offs, which should be fun this morning. Deliver one where you need to. Give one someone right upside the chin. You know what I'm saying? Give one a good Buck-off, including this. Actually, you know what? This is one of those. Is it a Buck-off or a Buck-on? Because now I'm reading that 1 week ago, NFL draft, first round, Bill Belichick pulled a trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and a lot of league general managers think he did it specifically to screw the Jets. The Jets, the Patriots were on the clock at pick 14. There were 4 offensive tackles that had first-round grades by most everybody, right? 4 first-round tackles. 3 of them had already been selected by the time the Patriots were on the board at 14. They weren't going to take a tackle, and the Jets were drafting right behind them. Remember, in the Aaron Rodgers deal, one of the things they did is the Jets and the Packers swapped first-round picks this year. So the Jets had the 13th pick, but then they swapped that with the Jets as part of the Aaron Rodgers, with the Packers. So instead of drafting 13th, the Jets were now drafting 15, right behind the Patriots. And 3 tackle, and everyone knew that the Jets' conventional thought was they're going to take a tackle to help protect Aaron Rodgers, their newly acquired 39-year-old quarterback. 3 were off the board. And with the Patriots on the clock, Bill Belichick swung a deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers to drop 3 or 4 spots back to number 17. And the Steelers came up and took the last tackle off the board. The kid Broderick Jones from Georgia, which kind of screwed the Jets. They didn't have a tackle left, and the league executives are now all talking that he did it on purpose. He didn't ask for much from the Steelers, like a 4th-round pick to drop back, knowing the Steelers would come up and take a tackle. And is that a buck on or a buck off for you, Mike Craven? Is that look at Bill Belichick still resenting the Jets and trying to screw a division rival.
Yeah, I'm for that.
For that.
Yeah, I'm absolutely for that, right? Like, I mean, you got 32 teams in this league. Like, it's all dirty pool, right? Like, there's nothing. I enjoy the pettiness. I grew up a professional wrestling fan. I need more and more of the petty drama going on in our athletic
I'm all
sports.
for petty. But yeah, how about that? You know what? Just give us, Mike Tomlin, give us a 4th-round pick. We'll slide back. And they, of course, then took the Texan Christian Gonzalez, the corner out of the Colony in Oregon. That's probably who they're going to take anyhow, knowing they could probably get him back there at 17. And the Jets were kind of screwed. Jets, all the tackles were off the board. They had to go a different direction, and the fans were mad. They didn't get an offensive lineman. So, yeah, that's good stuff. I like it. I like the pettiness as well. Bill Belichick.
It's in the division.
It's in the division.
I mean, you got to do what you got to do.
Now he's got to beat Aaron Rodgers, right? He's got to face Aaron Rodgers. And he's got a good pass rush with Matthew Judon and company. And we don't want you getting that Broderick Jones guy out of Georgia. We're going to let the Steelers get him, which is perfect. That's good stuff right there. Love these subplots behind the scenes. Speaking of behind the curtain stuff, can we get to the headlines, trending topics on this Thursday morning to start your 6 o'clock hour? UBO Business Services brings it to you. Yeah, Buck off to the NBA playoffs last night. Zero drama with just one game on the card. It wasn't actually much of a game. Celtics responded to their Game 1 home loss to Philadelphia with an angry brand of basketball last night, and they overwhelmed the 76ers 121-87. Game was never close in the second half. Jaylen Brown led the way with 25. That spoiled the return of the newly named and minted league MVP, Joel Embiid. He returned from his knee injury, scored 15 points in 26 minutes. They'll head back to Philadelphia 1-1. Only one game tonight as well. It's a big one, though, out west. Golden State will host the LA Lakers in Game 2 of the Western Conference semifinal. Lakers, of course, took Game 1 on Tuesday night. Texas football news this morning were that the Horns have added a special teams piece to their 2024 recruiting class. A commitment yesterday from Fort Lauderdale, Florida punter Michael Kern, St. Thomas Aquinas High School, ranked as one of the top 5 prep punters in the nation. Also from the 40 acres yesterday, 5th-ranked Texas softball team back in action after an 11-day layoff, and they ruled Sam Houston State 12-2. Pro baseball yesterday, both the Rangers and Astros dropped series-ending matinees yesterday afternoon. Arizona avoided a sweep with a 12-5 win in Arlington. Giants took the rubber game of that series in Houston 4-2. Round Rock split a day-night doubleheader in Reno yesterday and last night. Hockey, Carolina and Vegas, both winners in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And how about HEB Center at Cedar Park? Texas Stars finished off a three-game sweep of Rockford in the first round of the Calder Cup playoffs, 4-2 the final last night. They now await the winner of the Milwaukee-Manitoba series in the Central Division Finals. Massive developing story from global soccer. Lionel Messi apparently headed out of PSG. 35-year-old's contract set to expire this summer. Messi has been in discussions reportedly with the Saudi Arabian government about joining the Saudi Pro League. Reports suggest Messi could make as much as $400 million annually. In the NFL, New York Jets continuing to surround their quarterback with familiar faces. Yesterday, they agreed to a one-year deal with veteran receiver Randall Cobb on a one-year deal. 32-year-old, a longtime target for Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. And an interesting piece of news coming out of Dallas at a charity golf event yesterday. Cowboys star Micah Parsons told reporters that he's skipping the team's voluntary offseason program in order to focus on bulking up and adding weight to be able to play defensive end full-time in 2023. Two-time Pro Bowler plus played linebacker in Dallas since he was drafted in 2021, but appears that he'll be exclusively coming off the edge this season. He added that he plans to return to the Cowboys OTAs later this summer. Yeah, reports that Micah Parsons is working out here in Austin. As he's trying to add weight and bulk up. And, look, I mean, when it comes time to that massive contract of his, pass rushing defensive ends make more money than linebackers.
Yes.
Just the way the salary scale goes. And you wonder, I mean, he's been a guy that can move all over the field and the chess piece and that kind of thing for Dan Quinn. We talked a lot about the drafting last Friday night of DeMarvion Overshown, who's got a similar, not as explosive as Micah Parsons, who is, but a guy that can move all over the field, play linebacker, maybe rush the passer. But interesting here, Micah Parsons planning to bulk up and come off the edge full-time.
Well, first, it eliminates the argument of, like, if DFW is better than Austin. I lived up there for a year, and, they always told me about how Austin stinks and everybody's trying to get out of Austin. And, now Micah Parsons is down here working out in his fun time. And so if I'm Micah Parsons, though, I'm doing the same thing. I mean, I think you look at the Cowboys and the way the NFL works nowadays, and you go, I might get a franchise tag. Before they're ready to really negotiate a long-term contract, I may be a guy on a franchise tag for a year or two as they figure out the roster and the price and all that stuff. And if he goes into that, being a defensive end edge rusher is much more lucrative than being a middle linebacker. And it's a more impactful position, right? You can go find some middle linebackers in modern college football to do what you're supposed to do. It's really hard to find a guy coming off the edge that can do what Michael Parsons does. Well,
and the impact he's had on that defense since walking in the door he's an all-pro as a rookie. We talked a little bit about the Texans and their drafting of Will Anderson and how explosive he can be. remember Will Anderson was like high 4.5s, 4.6 at the combine. Micah Parsons runs a 4.3. I mean, it's ridiculous. This guy. I mean, this guy is he's we always compare him to like a jungle cat or something, like a lion on the Serengeti chasing things down. He's so powerful, but then he's 4.3 fast, so he can run anybody down. Quarterbacks can't get away from him. The quick twitch is unbelievable. You hope he doesn't lose any of that by adding weight, but you understand why he is. He wants to be sturdier against those tackles, and he is working out here in Austin at the Collective. Jeremy Hills, the former Longhorn, has started, and he's got 2 great gyms now. They're called the Collective with a K. Very cool places, one on South Congress and one out north. But
they need to be better against the run.
They do.
And like him getting bigger has to be able to help that as well.
Yeah, Mozzie Smith, of course, the draft pick last Thursday out of Michigan, is brought in specifically for that reason, to anchor the point of attack with his strength, and Micah getting stronger as well. They still have DeMarcus Lawrence. They still have Dorrance Armstrong. And look, they're gonna sick this defense on. This is obviously the plan for Mike McCarthy. Let this defense get after it. Let the offense make fewer mistakes. I mean, Dak threw 17 interceptions last year. That's got to be cut in half if you can do it, and stop taking those chances, because the defense can put you in position to win every game. But Dak Prescott needs to find a way to win those games for the Dallas Cowboys. But yeah, Micah Parsons. Look, if you see him bumping around Austin, you can say that looks like Micah Parsons. Might be getting his workout in, getting his bulk on. But yeah, buck-ons and buck-offs on a Thursday. Ty, you heard that too, that Mike is hanging out here. You're a big Cowboy guy.
Yeah, and I saw his tweet. He said he'll never play above 255 in his career. And it said it's not as much putting on weight, just to put on weight, but just trying to build more muscle to take on the toll of having to play in the trenches for every down.
Yeah, after you go through the 2 seasons, you realize, man, I'm strong, but I got to get stronger. This is a long 17 game, 18-week season. You got to be prepared for it and do the work this time of year to be ready for. And kind of like working on your grandpa's ranch. You gotta get stuff ready to be ready for the long haul.
I do expect him to still, show some exotic packages of him coming from, every position on the field.
Yeah, you have a guy like that, and you have to use him in as many creative ways as possible. I do like that they're just giving up on the whole, like, he is a linebacker still thing, because he's not, right? Like, if you want value out of that player, you make him, Von Miller. And he's going to have a much more value that way. And when you're taking those bumps and bruises and pulling guards or hitting you and all that it's hard to then go back to the second level and run free. That's going to take some of your explosiveness away just within a game. And so I think being a full-time defensive end, while granted he will play, around the field, I think if it's 90% defensive end, that's a better system for him and the defense, because then you can go about finding your true 11 rather than kind of straddling those positions with Micah at linebacker and defensive end and never really finding another person to be a starter caliber player.
I remember a quote from when DeMarcus Ware was on the Cowboys, and they had a defensive change going from the 3-4 to 4-3, and I remember him saying, "I get to play defensive end 94% of the time now." Number 94.
Yeah,
I expect that kind of like you said, 90 to 10. But I think this is a great thing for the defense.
I think you missed the opportunity. And Dan Quinn knows this very well. You put that guy everywhere, make him think, make the offense trying to figure it out. And look, sometimes he'll come, sometimes he won't. Right? He'll drop into coverage as well, and he's really good in that role too. But interesting little piece of NFL news there from Micah Parsons. And always remember, the Cowboys were very lucky to get Micah Parsons. Good fortune. The Cowboys, I mean, it's factual. The Cowboys were very lucky to get Dak Prescott when they did, right? That they didn't have a very high grade on Dak, and that was the year that Jerry Jones was, who was the big, tall quarterback?
He wanted Paxton Lynch.
And
then Connor Cook as well.
Remember out of Memphis? The kid come out of Memphis, big, tall kid. And, Jerry, I remember doing the show that next morning because Jerry was mad that he wasn't aggressive enough, right? He's a deal maker, right? Jerry Jones. The Riverboat Gambler, because it was the Denver Broncos that made a trade up into the back end of the first round to grab Paxton Lynch out of Memphis, and Jerry Jones went on record and said, "Man, we should have done that. We should have gotten the quarterback." Because what happened was that the top quarterbacks were off the board, and then in the fourth round they had a higher grade on Connor Cook out of Michigan State and some other quarterbacks who went ahead of Dak, and Dak kind of just was there, and we'll take Dak Prescott. Well, obviously, he has outperformed any expectation, including the Cowboys, because they just knew they needed to get a quarterback, and he was the last one there, and they took him. The Micah Parsons thing's similar but different. That in the first round, the Cowboys were picking 12, and remember the Cowboys wanted a cornerback, Cowboys were planning to take the top corner that was still left, and surprisingly, Carolina and Denver both went corner. J.C. Horn and Patrick Surtain both went off the board, and then the Eagles took Devontae Smith, and then the Bears took Justin Fields, and there, Micah Parsons was still on the board, which, that was also coming off the COVID year when, teams weren't sure, like guys like Micah Parsons and Jamar Chase and Penei Sewell who didn't play. Right? They decided, they played college football in 2020, whatever variation it was with the COVID situation. Like Penei Sewell out at Oregon, they only played a few games out there in the Pac-12. But you remember Micah Parsons and Jamar Chase shut it down. They just said, we're not playing. And so, that changed kind of their draft status, whether it should or not. I mean, you redraft that draft. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was the first pick. I mean, Micah Parsons would have been the second pick, right? I mean, Jamar Chase would have been ahead of Kyle Pitts. I mean, these guys are all pro players. These are, you could argue that Jamar Chase and Micah Parsons are the best player at their position in this league right now. But that's good fortune because Micah is to me is the key to that defense.
He changed everything.
He changed everything.
He took the worst defense in Cowboys history to formidable this first year, and then good his second year, and then great last year.
The Cowboys were terrible the first year for Mike McCarthy on defense. Terrible. They hired Mike Nolan to be the defensive coordinator. A bunch of old coaches came in. They were awful. Remember, they were just giving up like 40 burgers weekly. And, yeah, Dan Quinn came in, and they drafted Micah Parsons, and everything's changed. I mean, all of a sudden it's the strength of their team, and they're, where they were building towards the offensive side of the ball with Dak and Zeke and Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. It looked like they're going to be an offensive team. They've completely flipped that, and they're going, let's build around our defense. Let's play conservative on offense and try to win some games.
You think that's because the defense has gotten so good and Micah Parsons is a freak, or because they just can't trust the offense to actually be that?
The first option there. I think Jerry's always going to choose offense over defense.
But he couldn't this time.
No.
In my opinion, because that offense can't be chosen.
Well, yeah, I mean, and especially when you're losing to San Francisco every year, you see I realize they haven't won a Super Bowl in that time frame, but you see
since you've been born there, Ty.
I know, but I mean, I think they realized what they had in Dak Prescott over the past few years. I mean, he's a quarterback that can win you games, but you're gonna have to lean on the rest of your team to win you games in the playoffs.
He's a fourth round quarterback.
Yeah.
Well, and they still need Dak to be able to engineer big drives in the fourth quarter because, as I've said over and over again, each of the last two playoff games with the Niners, you had the ball halfway through the fourth quarter and a chance to go down and take the lead and try to win the game, and the offense couldn't move the football. And Dak threw an interception, I think, on both occasions, and then time ran out. So they're still going to have to get Dak to be more clutch in clutch situations. And Mike McCarthy now calling the plays. How does that look? I mean, what does that running back room look like now with the addition of Deuce Vaughn, but the no more Zeke, and it's going to be mostly Tony Pollard and Malik Davis, and then CeeDee Lamb, Brandon Cooks, Michael Gallup at wide receiver. Dalton Schultz is no longer there, who was a security blanket for Dak. Now it's going to be Jake Ferguson, and they drafted the kid out of Michigan, Schoonmaker, in the second round. So it's a new-look offense for sure over the course of 2 off seasons, completely rebuilt, revamped. And then the defense is going to be the bell cow of what they do. Is that wise in today's NFL, where most teams are going the other way? They're going more offense and let's outscore people.
Well, I guess my argument would be like the Dallas Cowboys would love to go that way. I think early on in Dak's career, as he was having success, you started seeing them load up on offense because they thought that's what they were going to be able to do. They're only going this defensive route, one, because, like you mentioned, they got lucky with Micah Parsons, and he's a generational player. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame, win a couple MVPs. But also, I believe there was a realization in that back room of, well, we can't do it that way. Like, the only way you can win with a mediocre quarterback in the NFL is to have an elite defense, great special teams, not turn the ball over. What we're seeing for the San Francisco 49ers, the Cowboys have to be more of that because Dak's just not going to be more than what he is right now.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's Patrick Mahomes' league until someone proves otherwise. With played in 3 Super Bowls in 5 years, won 2 of them. Tom Brady won a Super Bowl in there as well. Because somebody said, what round was Tom Brady? Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick.
That was an anomaly.
But look, I mean...
Right. Yeah, like that explains every other late-round pick of all time, as Tom Brady did at one time.
Yeah, it seems like he's an outlier. But look, I mean, they use Brady and Belichick as an example that they're trying to build a great defense, because how did Brady win and play in all those Super Bowls?
Sure.
You had Belichick coaching up a great defense.
They weren't winning 45-22 or anything.
Right. They weren't blowing outside of 2008 when they went 18-0 and had that unbelievable offense. But Brady, won a lot, but this is where Dak has to come in, right? If you're gonna play close, low-scoring games, you need your quarterback to be really clutch. And obviously, Tom Brady is proven to be the ultimate clutch quarterback in clutch situations, engineering a big drive or a touchdown or whatever it needed to be to win that game. That's how he played in 10 Super Bowls, and won 7 of them. And that's Dak has not shown that, quite honestly. And you can blame the weapons, you can blame the offensive coordinator. But until that changes, there's a ceiling on the Dallas Cowboys, no matter how good their defense is. And they've invested in this quarterback. He's going to have to win you some football games. I'm not saying, carry the team, but in a big moment, fourth quarter, he's got to put you in the end zone.
Does it matter how good your defense is when you're playing Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs?
Well,
I don't think.
Well, that's Tom Brady.
That's
Tom
the
Brady
thing.
beat him.
That's the thing is like you get to those moments like when you got to beat Joe Burrow eventually. You got to beat Patrick Mahomes eventually.
Now it's
you got to beat
Jalen
Jalen
Hurts.
Hurts eventually. And how do you do that? Like you're in modern football, you're not going to win often 17-13.
That's right.
You're going to have to score some points, and Dak's going to have to step up in those ways.
I realize the Chiefs had injury issues up front, but Tom Brady beat Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl 31-9, and they suffocated their defense along with Tom Brady's efficient offense, choked out the Chiefs, and won that game convincingly. So yes, you can beat Patrick Mahomes in a Super Bowl, but you got to play really good defense, and your quarterback has to play at a very high level. Since his rookie year in playoff clutch situations, Dak Prescott, quite honestly, hasn't played at a high level. And that's obviously where the Cowboys are. But you see where they're going. We can see the roadmap for sure with Micah Parsons working out and hanging out in the A-Town, ATX.
He has more playoff wins than Tony Romo did, though.
That's true.
Which is crazy.
That's true.
Because that's most of my life right there.
We will be back. There's a free agent quarterback. Cowboys are investing at high level at quarterback. Hey, we'll pick up this conversation. It's Mike Craven hanging out with us this morning. Dive into some college football. He's seen all these teams around the state of Texas over the course of the spring. Get some thoughts going on your favorite team. Also, Craig Way has his report, some B&E facts of the day. Just getting warmed up on a Thursday. B&E on the horn with Ty Henderson and, of course, Mike Craven this morning, my good buddy and co-host on the Eyes on Texas multicast that we do. He also is the lead college football writer. Is it lead? Can I say lead or senior? Senior college football
writer? I think
writer.
it's technically senior. I'm not much of a title guy, but technically it's senior.
College football writer at Dave Campbell's Texas Football.
I'm approaching 40, so they wanted me to have the senior there.
Senior, not lead, but the best. I'll call him the best. I know you got other good people there you like a lot, but Mike's the best, and formerly of the Austin American Statesman, now at Dave Campbell's Texas Football. And with us this morning, coming up in our next hour, be with us. We're going to go through with Mike's eyewitness account of all the teams in Texas that the Longhorns will play in 2023. So your thoughts on the Big 12 teams, even with the Houston Cougars joining the Big 12 Conference. We'll dive into that coming up in our next hour, a little in-depth college football conversation. I also want to get your thoughts on the Deion Sanders situation. I haven't talked to you much about Deion's roster overhaul and actually cutting players, essentially, that had no intentions on leaving, but Deion essentially telling them, get your ass in the portal. Get gone. We got to replace you with somebody else. Is that on the up and up in your mind? But we'll get to all that. That's a buck off for me for sure. I'm not a fan of it. You know, it's interesting. We talked last Thursday, to Mac Brown. Late in the show, in our 9 o'clock hour, Mac was in town for the Mac, Jack, and McHaney event last week, their big charity event. Had Garth Brooks playing on last Thursday night, but we asked Mac about it, and he, as usual, very candid. He's not a fan. There's got to be some parameters. There's got to be some rules, and knowing Mac as well as we do and covering him as long as we did, I mean, if there's anybody that's not going to be a fan of cutting players and telling them to get on out of here like Deion has done, that I can't think of a coach that'd be less a fan of that than Mac Brown. I mean, it's
no doubt. I mean, this is much different than what he dealt with. You know, I think there was a lot of people who thought Mac was a little bit too nice, maybe to the bottom third of his roster, because you do want that organic, natural turnover. Now, 65 players leaving in scholarship, not that organic, right? But you do want probably the 10 or 15 guys at the bottom of your roster to leave, so you can fill that with better players, especially when you're a place at the University of Texas. That's one of the issues with the collectives right now, right? Like, I think on paper it felt like a good idea. Instead of everybody fending for themselves to do NIL, let's do it what Texas Tech's doing, where everybody gets $25,000 if you're on the team. Well, that's fine and dandy. But if you're the third-string center who's going into his junior or senior year, without that 25, maybe you transfer to an Abilene Christian or something to go play some football. Now Tech has an extra scholarship to go use. With that 25, now you're going, well, I'm not going to get $25,000 going to Abilene Christian. I might as well just stay on scholarship at Texas Tech, finish up my degree, and get that $25,000. So roster management is one of those new things that going around college football that's going to be changing.
And it's much more of a business. I mean, obviously, it's always been a big business, $1 billion business. Now the players are cut in on it, and it adds new wrinkles like this. But like in the Colorado thing specifically, you know, theathletic.com has done great reporting on this and talked to a lot of the players that were told to get in the portal, and several stand out. But the one we talked about last week with Bucky, you know, the offensive lineman whose father was a part of the national championship winning team at Colorado in 1990. He always wanted to play at Colorado for Colorado. 6'8", 330-pound tackle who just wanted to keep getting better, get a degree from Colorado, and had no intentions of leaving. Had an exit meeting with Deion Sanders planned and planning to, okay, what do I need to work on? What can I get better at? And basically was told, no, you're out. Get out. Beat it. Which, you know, I don't think anybody would be a fan of. But I guess that's where we are. We're a guy that, I mean, the portal is there for guys who want to, you know, look around and maybe at the, you know, whatever the reason. I like that it's there, but at the same time, I'm not a fan of coaches, you know, cutting players essentially. But we'll talk more about it coming up with college football. Wanted to put this out there, though, and have some fun with it because I saw it yesterday. And I thought it was very clever. I think it was Barstool that put this out, Barstool Sports. But they, you know, on the heels of the NFL draft, they did a fictional bars and restaurants draft. Okay, so I mentioned I was watching an episode of Ted Lasso last night. And Ted Lasso, if you ever see that show with Jason Sudeikis, they hang out, you know, the fans of the soccer team, and they even the, you know, Ted Lasso and crew hang out at the Crown and Anchor. The Crown and Anchor pub in Richmond, England. That's where they hang out. So all great television shows, or most of them, have a bar or a restaurant where the crew hangs out. So the question is, what are the best? What is the best fictional bar or restaurant? And some examples could be Moe's Tavern in The Simpsons, right? They're always at Moe's. Frank Collar's always good, Ty. But the Bada Bing in Sopranos, who didn't love the Bada Bing? That might be the winner, Mike, because strip club. Come on now. But the Office off to the side. A lot went down in the Bada Bing.
Yes.
in that great series there, Mike.
What a name, too.
Yeah, the Bada Bing.
Bada bing, yeah.
What a perfect name. So we'll, they did a good job of listing some of the best ones, but let's get your favorite, put it out there. The Specs text line 513-337-3776. How you do that? I know this one, Ty, your favorite show. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
I was about to say.
You have it?
Patty's Pub.
Patty's Pub.
Oh, it's a great show.
Okay, cool. Aaron's never seen Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
It's a great show. It gets worse every episode, which means it gets better every episode. Every episode is like, how did this continue? It's a great show.
Yeah, you need to check that out.
Yeah, the genesis of it is awesome as well. That was like when FX was first getting going, and they basically solicited a bunch of like local television shows, like, "Hey, show us your clips, and we'll give somebody a series." And they were on public access show doing that show basically wherever they're from, and sent it in, and it won the series, and then that became Always Sunny.
Yeah, only one of the dentists in the show. He's the only actor that has like actual acting training.
Right.
The rest of the people are
just chilling.
Yeah,
Exactly. They just had a
exactly.
funny story and they just wanted to do it. And then after season 1, the execs were like, this is a great show, but it has no star power, to your point, right? And that's why Danny DeVito got in there. They did that out of spite. They were like, if we're going to get a famous person, let's get an ironically funny famous person.
He makes the show for sure.
Yeah.
Though.
So it's that's a fantastic show. You should really
Patty's
get in on
Pub.
that.
Patty's Pub. Cheers has been mentioned several times already. And, of course, the whole show was based in a bar.
Yeah.
Back in the day, but that's one of the all-time iconic sitcoms. Cheers. That's a great one. Also, if you're a fan of the show Friends, would they hang out in the Central, what was it called, Central Perk?
That was like a coffee shop.
It was a coffee shop. It's the same kind of thing. Restaurant, coffee shop, bar.
So if you're a fan of The Office, does Chili's count? Because I feel like
Yes.
they always have a pretty good time at Chili's.
Absolutely.
I'm always
Yeah.
looking for that kind of
Triple
environment.
dipper.
Yeah.
The Triple
man.
Dipper. The
Can't beat
Chili's.
it.
The Chili's. And, in the movie Office Space, which was filmed here, what was the name of the restaurant where Jennifer Aniston worked? Do we remember?
It was Irish.
It was like
O'Malley's. or
Yeah,
something.
it was like a
basically
takeoff
Bennigan's.
of Bennigan's, yeah.
Right.
It was a
Yeah.
spin-off of Bennigan's.
Yeah.
But
That's
like
my favorite movie of all time.
Oh, I love
Office
that
Space?
movie.
Yeah,
Anything
I feel
Mike
like the
Judge.
main character in that is like, oh, this is the worst day of your life. Like, yeah, every day is the worst day of my life. Like, oh wow, that's crazy.
Seinfeld, of course, had Monk's Cafe. Did you know it's called Monk's Cafe?
Oh, I didn't. It just says restaurant on the outside,
yeah,
right?
Monk's Cafe apparently is what that was called. When they hung out at Seinfeld and ate big salads and told jokes with Jerry
Salsa.
and the crew. What's that?
Salsa.
Salsa. Yeah. Oh, man. So let's have some fun with that this morning. Give us your favorite fictional bar or restaurant. Movies. Go to movies. Like, how about one of the ones that they suggested from The Godfather, Louis' Restaurant, where it all went down, where it all began. Louis. Where was that? In Harlem? No, Louis. Where was it? If you remember the original Godfather, we'll have some fun with that this morning. So send yours in. Bennigan. It was Office Space was Flanagan's. That's true. Flanagan's. Did you ever go to Bennigan's when it was operational?
Absolutely.
I was a fan of Bennigan's. I feel like when I was growing up in Northwest Houston, when any family would come from out of town to visit, we would do the same trip every time with my dad. We'd go to the Astrodome. We'd go to the Ship Channel. We'd of course we'd just do the same damn trip all over Houston.
The Ship Channel.
Oh yeah. Well, you go down by the Battleship Texas and the
I got you. Okay.
You were thinking like television channel.
No. I thought you were just like going down
The
and
Houston
just
Ship
watching
Channel's
the
pretty
ships
cool,
go
man.
by.
Well, there's a restaurant you can sit in and eat some shrimp and see the ships come in and that kind of stuff. NASA, of course, you got to hit NASA when you got company in town if you're from Houston, living in Houston. Astrodome, all the normals. But we'd always seem to end up at Bennigan's. I don't even know because there wasn't a lot of. This was early '80s, middle '80s, and weren't a lot of restaurant choices where I lived out in Northwest Houston. And now there's a bajillion as that area is blown up like crazy. But yeah, Bennigan's seemed to be our spot. Bennigan's.
What was their thing?
Bennigan's. It was
Is it
just it was like one of the, they had everything. Like they had something for everybody. Like you could get
It's like a book menu.
Yeah, you think it's
Is
like
it kind of like a BJ's these
yeah,
days?
or what is it? Where's the place Vince Young loved to go all the time and spend all his money?
Cheesecake Factory?
Cheesecake Factory.
Yeah,
you know
I
the
love
Yeah,
Cheesecake
it's along
Factory.
those lines. Chili's, Applebee's, Cheesecake Factory.
I'm a Chili's man for life.
well, and I'm sure for my dad, it was good enough, but everybody could get something they liked, including
and
the
it
kids.
wasn't overly expensive.
Right. It wasn't super. And really, we didn't have a lot of choices. So it was, let's go to Bennigan's. You go to pizza place, you're getting pizza. You go to Mexican, you're getting Mexican. If you go to Bennigan's, somebody can get something that they like. Get a burger, get a juicy bad steak if you want that. Baked potato, the whole set. This says Mo Easley's Cantina. Mo Easley's Cantina. Rosie's Bar in MASH was always a good one. The Regal Beagle. Oh, my gosh, we're going back to the Regal Beagle. That is, Regal Beagle is Three's Company, right?
Oh, I don't know.
The Regal Beagle? This is 70s. We're going 70s now.
Yeah. I'm not as young as Ty, but I'm not as old as that.
Yeah. The Regal Beagle. I see if I get this right. I'm gonna Google it real fast.
There's the Clam.
Yeah, it was the Regal Beagle,
and Family Guy.
Yeah.
the Ropers, and then Mr. Furley. I hung out at the Regal Beagle back in the 70s. So, yeah, we'll take those throughout the morning. We'll come back and we do hit some B&E facts of the day. We are going to preview with Mike's help the teams from the state of Texas on the Longhorn schedule this year. Get some thumbnail thoughts on them coming out of spring, strengths and weaknesses, that kind of stuff. We'll hit it coming up. It's B&E on the Horn.
It's Bucky and Erin.
Beating on the horn, Mike Craven hanging with us. Talk plenty of college football coming up in our next hour into our Coach's Corner. Mike has traveled the state of Texas. How many miles did you put on your vehicle here in the spring? Any guesstimate?
I mean, you got to be about 3,000 or 4,000.
You've gone to every campus.
I had to get an oil change. I flew to UTEP, flew to Lubbock, but everywhere else I drove.
Yeah, you did the Craig Way tour when Craig was driving all over Texas for the high school show he used to do. But yeah, Mike Craven. We'll talk all things college football coming up. Also reset those headlines at the top of the hour. Having fun with the best fictional bars, restaurants, pubs in movies or TV that you can think of. That's been a lot of fun and will continue to be. Somebody said Shabooms from Eastbound and Down. Good one. I like that a lot. It says Office Space also had a place called Tchotchkes, right? Is that right? Tchotchkes?
Oh, that is right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Several people mentioned and nominated the Drunken Clam from Family Guy. The Drunken Clam is a classic one. I think that's a good one. How about this? If you're going movies, the Double Deuce in Roadhouse. Remember the Double Deuce with Dalton? I'm a big Patrick Swayze guy.
Never seen it.
Take it out back there. Do a little fight. You never seen Roadhouse?
No. If I wanted to see a fight, I could just get in one.
Come on, that's the great Patrick Swayze.
Dirty Dancing.
Dirty Dancing. He was in too. Oh man. So we'll take some more of those. The best bars and restaurants and movies or TV. Have a little draft of that, which is fun. But we just heard that promo for the Aerosmith concert. The last run, the 50th year for Aerosmith. They're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They announced the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame class yesterday. And Willie Nelson, on the heels of Dolly Parton going in. Remember, Dolly was when inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. She said, "I'm declining that. I'm not in the rock and roll." And then she took it and performed. Sheryl Crow is going in. How about they're going back like 40 years to put Kate Bush in, which is weird. Missy Elliott, Rage Against the Machine is finally in. But Willie Nelson, and now at 90 years old, a Rock and Roll Hall of Famer to be in Cleveland, Ohio. I've been to that museum. It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's right next to the football stadium where the Browns play, right in downtown Cleveland, right along Lake Erie. Cool spot. It's if you're a lot of people don't book vacations to Cleveland that often, but if you're ever up that way, it's a pretty fun trip. I can recommend it. You can if you fly into Cleveland, you can do the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Maybe catch an Indians game in the summertime. It's pretty. They're the best. If you love roller coasters, the best amusement park in the world is about an hour drive to the west, called Cedar Park. Cedar Point.
I don't think anyone in history has ever said a trip to Cleveland, Ohio is pretty fun.
I'm just telling you why. Because you could see the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame is about 45, 50 minutes away down in Canton, which is always a trip. If you love football, you love music, a little baseball game, and if you love amusement parks, Cedar Point is right down the road there, about an hour. Great amusement park if you love roller coasters. And can I mention there, Mike Craven, people that aren't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that should be at this point? Why is Boston not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame yet? Great band, Boston. You kidding me?
Too soft.
Too soft? They changed music in the 70s. Come on now. Don Henley's not in as a solo artist. Why is he not in at this point? He was in at the Eagles.
Are.
But the Eagles are. But Don Henley should be in. Sammy Hagar should be in. Not just for Van Halen, but for what he did pre and post of that. When my 80s favorite, Motley Crue. Motley Crue should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They're not. Kidding me?
No, that's not soft.
And how about this one? Huey Lewis and the News. Huey Lewis and the News need to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Just an opinion. But,
someone brought up the good point that Kate Bush is probably going in now because of that song that's in the Stranger Things.
That's right. She's top of mind. No one's paying attention to that song for 4 decades. Right. Now she's in. Now she's going in, but good for her. I'm not going to criticize people who go in. I'm just going to, why aren't these people in? Well, my man Vince Neil and Motley Crue need to be in there. Tommy Lee, Nikki Sixx, get them in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's what band says rock and roll from the 80s, like Motley Crue?
So Rage Against the Machine was kind of like the voice track of my coming up, right? What was that for y'all?
Voice track of your Rage Against the Machine was yours. Motley Crue?
Motley Crue, okay.
I mean, I was 80s as far as rock and roll goes.
Like rock was. I mean, the first concert I ever went to was the Toadies.
That's not a bad one. That's not a bad one. I mean, it's like a soundtrack of your childhood. Like it
Toadies,
formed you.
The Toadies, for sure.
Yeah. My first concert was Bryan Adams. He's not in. The Canadian rocker. Should be. But Motley Crue, Ozzy Osbourne, All those 80s rock and roll bands, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, my first concert was Red Hot Chili Peppers at Zilliker Park.
That's awesome.
Learned a lot that day.
All right, so there's Iron Maiden also mentioned that they're not any that they should be. That was a band of the 80s and into the 90s too. Hard rock, heavy speed.
How are none of those bands in? But Missy Elliott.
I know.
It's not even. I love Missy Elliott.
Super Duper Fly.
That's what I'm saying. I know they're trying to branch out, diversify the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and what the definition of rock and roll is, but let's get the real rock and roll bands in there first that belong. Are you kidding me? All right, we'll be back. We'll hit the headlines, talk plenty of college football, your favorite bars and pubs and restaurants fictionally. Good times this morning. And, of course, at Buck-Ons and Buck-Offs on a Thursday on 104.9, 101.9 AM 1260, streaming always on your Horn app, on your smart speaker, and at hornfm.com. Thursday on the Horn, Buck on to you people. Yeah, we can call you people. You're our people. Great contributions on the Specs text line this morning for fictional bars and restaurants, including a ton that came in over the top of the hour break. Monks from Seinfeld again, Krusty Krab, SpongeBob, Al Bundy's Jiggly Club. It's back to Married with Children in the day. Skeeter's Bar on South Park is a good one. How about I go all the way back to the 70s with you, Mike Craven, and bring you from one of my childhood favorite shows, Dukes of Hazzard, The Boar's Nest.
The Boar's Nest.
That's where Daisy Duke worked and wore the Daisy Dukes. That's where they hung out. The Boar's Nest was always because, if you're doing a sitcom or a TV show, you got to have a cool little hangout place.
Yes, absolutely.
Got to have that. It's kind of a central. And we found out from you yesterday, Mike Craven, that before you became a sports writer, you wanted to be a screenwriter. And write creative, TV, movies, what?
Yeah, I wanted to do TV, movies. I had worked on a TV show. I kind of ran into a guy just actually on orangebloods.com who had written on a couple shows for HBO. We kind of hooked up. We're working on some stuff. And, then the writer's strike happened, and I needed money because I was like 23 years old. So I took the money that they had given me, went to Vegas, had maybe the greatest week of my life. We can't talk about it here on this show, but that was pretty awesome. Came back and then started working at the Taylor Daily Press and the Hutto News.
We can't talk. Okay, so so you took the money that was advanced to you?
Yeah, because you get in advance, right?
Sure,
they option it. That way you can't shop it out. And that doesn't mean they're going to make it, right? There's no guarantee they were ever going to make this show.
They're putting it on hold because they kind of like it. But you get a little cash to keep it
and
under wraps.
This was back when streaming was just taking off, so they were buying everything. It wasn't that the script was excellent or anything. They were just buying anything that you sent to them, basically.
What was it about?
It was kind of workaholic-y.
Okay.
I still get mad when I see Workaholics on TV because it was basically that, but with two people.
Was it before Workaholics?
What's that?
Was this before Workaholics?
Oh, yes. Yes. This was like 2007 when all this went down. And then that the writer's strike happened, and I helped start the union at the Statesman. I wasn't going to be the guy who started his career by walking across this picket line and making everybody else mad, right? I was only 23 years old. And they had given me, it wasn't a lot of money. It was like $5,000, but when you're 23 years old, that's a ton of money. So me and two buddies went to Vegas and I didn't come back with a dime. I think I went into my own pocket by the time we were back. We were back from Las Vegas, and then I needed money. And sports writing is at least consistent. You get a paycheck every 2 weeks. If you're writing movies, you're writing scripts, you may make some money one year, make no money the next couple of years. And so I just assumed I would get back into the creative writing thing. Then I ended up getting sober, been clean for like 8 years. And I always found that creative writing, for me at least, was much harder to do from then on out.
Interesting. And now you're a tremendous sports writer. A lot of suggestions on bands who should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that are not. Also, the Guess Who was mentioned. Peter Frampton, who should be in without a doubt. The Foreigner is not in, but should be. Agreed, 100%. We learned something about one another in the break that you're not fond of much in the 80s. Because it's funny, you're 40, correct? This year, 38, almost 40. I'm 50 this year. So we're 12 years apart, and it really is different. I mean, it's amazing how much that separates. I am big into all the 80s music, and today is May the 4th, so May the 4th be with you. Star Wars. I remember I was huge into Star Wars as a kid, the first three, right? The originals, Star Wars, and then Empire Strikes Back. And, the first three had the lunch boxes and the bed sheets and all that. Because when the first Star Wars came out, I think I was 6 or 7 years old. I mean, it was huge for me and my older brother. But I didn't keep up with it. I didn't keep, those three, and then that's it. But everything for me is 80s. Most things for you are 90s. So you're mostly 90s. And so that's where you got into hip hop music and, Nirvana and Pearl Jam and all those. I liked all those bands. They were just coming out when I was in college.
Yeah, I was born in 85, so by the time I could start having my own taste, it was the early 90s. We were living in Houston for a few years there because of my parents' work, and so I really got into rap music there. But some of it just came from contrarianism. My parents are very young. Both of my parents were only 18 years older than me. So all of my dad's favorite things were 80s stuff. And so being a kid with a little bit of a rebellion streak, I wasn't going to listen to country music. I was going to find the exact opposite of that, which happened to be rap music.
There you go.
I wasn't going to watch things like Star Wars, because he loved that stuff, and so some of it was just that, right? Just a young kid trying to find his like own stuff to be cool. They didn't think that stuff was cool. Like, what are you doing, little white boy, listening to all this rap music and stuff? Like they didn't understand that, and I think that made it more fun for me. Like we were talking about yesterday, I loved the Miami Hurricanes, even though
we were talking about your first sports memory, and you were 5 years old for the Cotton Bowl, the Shock the Nation tour. Yeah. And you were quietly rooting for Miami.
Yeah, the Fab Five at Michigan. Like that's. I thought all that stuff was cool. Like Ric Flair was my favorite wrestler. And so I was always into the heels, always into the bad guys, always into a little bit of an attitude.
All right, well there you go. Learning about Mike Craven this morning, which in addition to his work at Dave Campbell's Texas Football, my co-host on the newly started Eyes on Texas multicast, which is going to focus on Texas football, which we're going to focus on coming up here in our Coach's Corner. And they're just pouring in. I love Roper's Regal Beagle keeps being mentioned from the 70s. You guys have no idea what Roper's Regal Beagle is, but that's from Three's Company.
I do love the name.
How about
I know. I was thinking I should open a Regal Beagle out Onion Creek way. I want the Hogan's Regal Beagle, and it's
Regal Bagels.
Yeah. Go ahead.
This is a real place, but Club Karma in Jersey Shore.
Okay.
I've been rewatching Jersey Shore with my girlfriend in the past few days.
Why?
Yeah.
It's entertaining.
Okay.
It's a good show.
Cheers Bar has been mentioned again. Los Pollos Hermanos from Breaking Bad. Good one.
Yes.
How about Bada Bing, of course, from Sopranos, been mentioned over and over. I think that might be the winner when it's all said and done. Yeah. What's a cooler place than the Bada Bing in Sopranos? It's about as good as it gets. All right, let's get to the headlines, trending topics, then we're diving into that Coach's Corner, talking some college football. UBO Business Services, NBA, zero drama last night with this one game on the card, and it wasn't actually much of a game. Boston Celtics responded to their Game 1 home loss to Philadelphia, came out with an angry brand of basketball last night and overwhelmed the 76ers 121-87. Jaylen Brown led the way with 25. They spoiled the return of the newly named league MVP Joel Embiid, who scored 15 points in 26 minutes, but still a long series, 1-1. They head back to Philadelphia. One game tonight on the card as well, but a big one out west. Golden State hosting the LA Lakers in Game 2 of the Western Conference semifinals. Lakers, of course, stole Game 1 on the road on Tuesday night. Texas football news this morning were that the Horns have added a special teams piece to their recruiting class for 2024, a commitment from a punter from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. St. Thomas Aquinas punter Michael Kern, ranked as one of the top 5 prep punters in the nation, committed to the Longhorns for next year. Pro baseball, Longhorns and Rangers and Astros both dropped series-ending matinees yesterday afternoon. Arizona beat the Rangers. Giants beat the Astros in the rubber game of that series. Round Rock split a day-night doubleheader in Reno. And hockey, Carolina and Vegas posted wins in the Stanley Cup playoffs at HEB Center at Cedar Park last night. Texas Stars finished off a 3-game sweep of Rockford in the first round of the Calder Cup playoffs. 4-2 was the final. Now I'll await the winner of the Milwaukee-Manitoba series. In the NFL, interesting piece of news out of Dallas. At a charity event yesterday, Cowboy star Micah Parsons told reporters that he's skipping the team's voluntary offseason program in order to work out here in Austin to focus on bulking up, adding weight to play defensive end full-time in 2023. And a developing story from soccer, and Lionel Messi apparently done and out of PSG. The 35-year-old's contract set to expire this summer. Messi apparently has been in discussions with the Saudi Arabian government about joining the Saudi Pro League. Reports suggest Messi could make as much as $400 million annually. So, yeah, I mean, those live golfers did pretty good, but Messi about to do really good with the Saudi Arabian cash. If you want to take it, they'll give it to you. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and PSG is owned by the Qatarians, so it's not like he's going from like some Golden Gate to where he's going next, and I think that's why the World Cup had such a pushback when it was in Qatar, right? Like this was the whole plan, was to kind of sports wash some of these issues, make it a little bit more okay,
palatable.
You're right, to go play that way. Cristiano Ronaldo going and doing it, I think, set the stage. Now, if Messi goes, and then all of a sudden that league will be taken relatively seriously. There's not a lot of depth, not a lot of talent there yet, but with that kind of money, you can absolutely become one of the 4 or 5 most important soccer leagues in the world.
Well, and the spigots of black gold never stop there, so the money will never run out.
The amount of money that is over, it's staggering. I don't even know if it's measurable.
Yeah, so staggering is a great word for it. And remember, hearing Messi at $400 million, remember they offered Tiger Woods $800 million to be the face of the Live Tour, and that got a bunch of debate. And of course, Tiger turned that down. Who knows what they offered Jack Nicklaus before Greg Norman took the mantle of the face of the operation. But they on several occasions, Jack Nicklaus admitted he had to turn down a lot of money But, Messi, 35, end of his career, going to cash in for sure. Generational wealth there. All right, let's dive into the Coach's Corner. It's brought to you by Audiovisual Consultations and our good buddy Tom McKay. By the way, I saw that, actually, I heard Tom McKay call Craig's show yesterday, and they were talking about hockey. So Tom McKay went to the Dallas Stars game that ended up in overtime on Tuesday night. I think he probably went to the game last night at the Cedar Park Center, HEB Center at Cedar Park, to see the Texas Stars. That guy's burning both ends, which appreciate Tom McKay and his partnership here on the Horn. Hey, Mike, your day job, your RJ, as we like to call it, the real job, is Dave Campbell's Texas Football. And as we've said, for the month of April, you went all over the state and visited with coaches and players and peeked in on spring practice. Got a look at the 2023 version of these teams. And let's go through some thoughts that you have. I mean, start with the Longhorns, because that was your final stop. You come back home, and you had about a 20-minute sit down with Sark and talk to some players. What was your read and takeaway from the afternoon you spent with the Longhorns?
Now, there's a lot of confidence in that room, and they're not shying away from the expectations or talking about the expectations. Jordan Whittington, when I asked him what the expectations should be for UT going into 2023, he said Big 12 national championship, and then just stop talking. Right, like that's where they feel they should. Jalen Ford was the same. That we know how much we have in this room, and if we don't achieve what I think we can achieve, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get over it. Were his words. And then you talk to Sark, and you listen to Sark all spring, and he doesn't seem like a coach who's trying to push those away, trying to add some governors, trying to add a little, we're this or we're that, or we're going to have to figure that. He's pretty confident in that, the guys that they have in the room, and I think it's the reason we haven't seen much transfer news on the football field for them as well. The guys that they have in that room, they feel are plenty capable of going and winning the Big 12. And if you can go and win the Big 12, maybe you can get into the college football playoff. TCU proved that the year before. Baylor almost proved that the year before that. And so that was what I was most I took away, I guess, was the idea of a lot of times you go into these buildings, you start talking about expectations and everything that they have there, and they'll push back on you a little bit to kind of slow those down or pump the brake on them. Texas feels like they're embracing those, and that feels like a good thing. That's a different deal, right? And they've got depth, they have competition. I think when you have those two things, it allows you to be confident.
Depth and competition. And to your point of Jordan Whittington, he's going to be a fascinating guy to follow this year, because he's not the best receiver on the team. I mean, X-Man. Now Adonai Mitchell coming in, A.D. Mitchell from Georgia, but he's just one of the pieces. But, we played the audio after the spring game, the Orange-White scrimmage, where he got really emotional talking to those guys about the choice he made to come back. And he doesn't feel like maybe he gave it all last year, that, he got do a little soul searching. I just find it really important for Texas when we talk about player-led teams. Well, what motivates the player? Because it feels to me like the Longhorns at pretty much every position, they have a player that could have left that came back. And all of them are the ones you just mentioned, saying Big 12 championship or bust is what the mindset is. And Jordan Whittington would be one of them. He could have moved on and tried his hand at the NFL. He came back. Christian Jones at right tackle could have gone, came back. On the and wide receiver, I think Adonai Mitchell's an example of a guy that came here, wanted to be closer to home and back in Texas. But, man, that guy brings championship metal. That guy knows how to get it done and what it takes to get it done. In each one of the positional rooms, there's a guy that you would think is going to be the coach in the room, essentially. That when the coaches aren't around, they should be the guys leading. Jalen Ford at linebacker, Devondre Sweat at defensive tackle. The defensive backfield is so deep. Those things are, for a coaching staff that's now been mostly in place for 3 years, that can be important, because the coaches aren't always around. And this summer will be a big part of that. When the coaches aren't there all the time, are these leaders really stepping up and pushing the envelope that, look, that's not good enough, right? I mean, raising the bar. And
the good teams are led by the offensive line and the defensive line. Those are the biggest guys in the room. They're the toughest guys in the room. They're the ones that can get everybody, together, quiet them down, get them on the same page if they need to, show a little bit of tough love. And you look at Texas, and they're finally in the position to have some leadership along the offensive line, the defensive line that they just hadn't had in 10 years. Jake Majors has around 30 starts. Christian Jones, you mentioned earlier, over 30 starts. Everyone on that offensive line has started at least 10 games, because even the true freshmen last year, Kelvin Banks and Cole Hudson, were able to get in 13 starts. And so the offensive line should be able to fill some of those voids left by Bijan Robinson, Rashawn Johnson, to give that unit some toughness. And then on defense, Byron Murphy is poised, in my opinion, to have a real breakout season. He's a good leader. Devondre Sweat, Barron Sorrell is a junior now with a year under his cap. Jalen Ford, obviously a senior leader. And then Anthony Hill's a young guy, but he was somebody with that reputation at Denton Ryan as a team leader. And so it feels like the big guys in the front are more prepared and more confident than ever to lead this team. And that's been something that has not been true at Texas, since Casey Studdard was on campus.
Feels like it. And interesting thoughts there. The lines of scrimmage, but I think it's fair to say the finisher for this conversation is that the ceiling is the quarterback play. I mean, if Quinn Ewers plays up to the capability, immerses himself in the system and runs the Sark offense, I think the sky's the limit, because I think they're really good, especially in the Big 12, where there are some good teams. I don't know if there's another team that has the ceiling that they have. Speaking of that, the teams the Longhorns will play that you saw, you went to Rice.
Did.
Mike Bloomgren, head coach there. JT Daniels to be the head coach. I mean, this should be an easy win for Texas, but what'd you take away from the Owls?
Yeah, Rice is in a great position for Rice, right? I mean, everything's relative. They're trying to get to 6 wins in the American. They were able to make a bowl last year, 5-7 on the APR. But had their defense played any better, they'd probably win 6 or 7 games. JT Daniels coming in as a starting quarterback is going to be big for them. Rice has started more quarterbacks than any other FBS program in the last 5 years. They've just had a ton of injuries, a lot of inconsistencies there. Bloomgren was the OC at Stanford when Daniels was kind of coming up in high school, so he was actually the first person to ever offer JT Daniels a scholarship. And he said he offered one every single time he got into the transfer portal, and like the 5th time's the charm was his joke. So I think Rice is going to be better. Obviously, nothing Texas needs to worry about in terms of wins or losses, but that's going to be a solid test. They have some weapons on the outside. Christian McCaffrey's brother is their star wide receiver. Luke McCaffrey, Bradley Rosner, if y'all recognize that name from the high school ranks. He's still in high school, or still in college. He's on his 8th year there.
8th year.
Yeah. Kind of like what we were talking about with Frank Harris yesterday, where you get those medical red shirts and the red shirts
UTSA
and the COVID year. And so, Rice is going to be better. Does better mean 6, 7, 8 wins? I don't know. But they feel pretty confident that this is their best team since 2013, 2014.
Interesting overview. And can we now call JT Daniels officially the college football's first journeyman right-hander? In baseball, you call these guys journeyman right-hander, journeyman left-hander. He's a journeyman. He's a journeyman playing on his 4th or 5th different team. All right, also from the state of Texas, you visited Waco with Dave Aranda. This one is a really interesting group here because Longhorns will play them in September. Remember, early game in McLean Stadium, kind of an early litmus test. The Longhorns will certainly get one at Alabama 2 weeks previous, but then their opening conference play in Waco against Dave Aranda's Baylor Bears, who have been, if you're looking at a graph, I mean, they were way down, then way up, and then way back down last year. Where are they going to be this year?
You ever seen Indiana Jones?
Of course, 80s. Come on.
Okay, yeah, we were just talking. Okay, so he when I was talking to Aranda, he mentioned the scene where you kind of walk into the town and the town splits, and then you see that guy with that fancy sword doing all those fancy tricks, and you want to be that guy, right? And he was like, you see TCU doing all this fun stuff, and you want to be that guy. You see Texas with all those toys, and you want to be that guy. Well, we're Baylor. We're just the dude with the gun. And we need to be the bully. We need to be the power team. I think they got away from that a little bit last year. He was hesitant to take transfers. Dave Aranda is an interesting cat. He was
he's
talking.
A different one, yeah.
He's a different dude, and he was talking to me about two people come from things from the side of love or the side of truth, and he likes to come from things from the side of love. And he thought if he told transfers yes, that was telling his current players no. Like if I take a transfer linebacker, that's me telling my linebackers on campus that they're not good enough. And so he tried to not do many transfers going from 2021 to 2022, and it bit them in the butt. They just were not good. They did not replace Terrell Bernard or J.T. Woods or Jalen Petrie with adequate players. And so going into this year, they got heavier in the transfer portal. They got over a dozen guys that they feel are going to make an impact. That should help them a lot on the skill position and on defense. But it's the offensive line. They lost 4 other 5 starters on the offensive line. They did bring in a couple dudes. If that offensive line can get back to 2021, Baylor's always going to be a tough team to beat. They got Richard Reese at running back. They're going to be able to run the football. That wide zone can be interesting and hard to stop, but they need the offensive line to be able to do it.
Interesting. Longhorns' last game of the season last year in the regular season was Baylor, and they're going to open the Big 12 play with Baylor this year. And whatever Dave Aranda has does look like Blake Shapen will be their quarterback again. They didn't. We talked to our buddy Craig Smoke up there in Waco coming out of the spring, and the competition not great. I mean, they're not really optimistic about the quarterback, but Blake Shapen has talent. Can he get back to playing like he did the year they won the SEC? They won the Big 12 and played and beat Who they beat in
Ole
the
Miss.
Sugar Bowl?
Ole
Ole Miss
Miss.
in the Sugar Bowl.
Because
And Shapen played really good, and but did he get a little bit lax with? Because remember, speaking of being too nice, Bohannon was the starter there at the beginning of the year they won the Big 12. And Dave Aranda was so nice to him. He said, "Look, we're going with Shapen. Why don't you transfer? Go get a new spot," and trying to help him and be nice about it. But then a lot of people in Waco think that maybe Shapen took his foot off the gas a little bit, knowing that it was his job and didn't have that competition to drive him to be better.
The quarterback needs to get better. They need more vertical passing game. I think adding some outside wide receivers will help that as well. Like their best wide receivers last year were slot guys, and so it was hard to get vertical. I do believe we talked too much about the Baylor offense because they were about the exact same last year as they were in 2021 scoring wise. They didn't run the ball as well. They had some issues, interceptions and stuff, but like scoring points per game, they were about the same. The difference was on the defensive side, and that's why Ron Roberts got fired, and that's Dave Aranda's dude. Like him and Ron Roberts are tight. And he fired him after the season because in that 2021 year, they only allowed 30 or more points one time, and that was 30 points on the dot to TCU in that loss. Last year was 6, maybe even 7 times they allowed over 30 points. And so, that defense did not replace Jalen Petrie, did not replace Terrell Bernard, did not replace JT Woods. They feel like they're more talented on that side of the ball going into 2023, and we'll see if that makes Baylor a contender.
All right, that's Baylor and Rice coming back. We'll pick up the conversation with Houston, TCU, and Texas Tech, the other 3 teams on the schedule for the Longhorns this year that you saw with your own eyes and talk to the coach. We'll have that on the other side. Continue the Coach's Corner into the next segment. Also, before the end of the hour, TY in the house this morning will lead us through some hot or not topics, things we've missed halfway through the show. It's B&E on a Thursday. QC Kinetics, folks, buck onto them without a doubt because QC Kinetics is helping people through their pain, their chronic pain that's just been a consistent thing, right? I always say with chronic pain, if it's in your knees, your hip, your shoulder, your lower back, it's not if it's going to hurt today, it's just how severe, how bad the pain's going to be, how many pain pills do you actually have to pop today to make it through, and it's gotten to the point where it's either that or surgery. Well, QC Kinetics is the answer. At least make that phone call and learn about their regenerative medicine, the ability to get in there and use your body's own healthy blood cells, highly concentrated, injected into the area to affect change and create get you through the chronic pain. That's what you're looking to do. The relief you're seeking can be there. All you have to do is call them. 593-4303, the phone number. It's 512-593-4303. Set up that free consultation. They get you in late this week or early next week. You'll be in there talking to them, asking the questions, getting the answers you want, and then make a decision from there. But at least find out the facts of how regenerative medicine, without, there's no downtime with regenerative medicine, right? The treatments take place in office, take about 30, 40 minutes or an hour at the most. So you're in and out each day as you go in for those treatments, as you begin the process. Unlike surgery, it's going to have you, laid down for weeks at a time, maybe months at a time. 593-4303 at QC Kinetics, a spot in Austin and in Round Rock. It's QC Kinetics.
USA rated FCS.
It's Bucky and Erin.
Well, zany bumper there, Ty. I like it.
Star Wars.
That is Star Wars. Oh, that's when they're at
Cantina.
the bar, right? At the cantina. Nice job, Ty. We're doing having some fun with favorite all-time fictional bars, restaurants, pubs, coffee shops like Friends. What was that Central Perk? It was always a good little spot for Jennifer Aniston and the crew to hang out back in the day. So we're having fun with that. This morning, 1 hour from now, we will have a conversation with the head baseball coach at the University of Texas, David Pierce, our weekly visit, as they're off to Kansas for one of 2 remaining Big 12 series the Longhorns have. They need every win they can get now as they're moving off to Kansas to play the Jayhawks this weekend. We'll talk to Coach Pierce. Of course, the question now for the Longhorns is, can they make that season-ending series with West Virginia very meaningful? Because right now, West Virginia, surprisingly, sitting atop the Big 12 and pretty comfortably right now. They've only lost 4 conference games so far, the Mountaineers. So Longhorns hoping to take advantage. We'll talk to him about that and the return and recovery of Tanner Witt and how that is going. So David Pierce in 1 hour. But in our coach's corner, and we're extending that into this, Mike Craven is with us this morning as Buck is out getting ready for the mini mullet open today. Also, the big mullet open is tomorrow. I will be out there bright and early. I think I'm going to go out. I got to go out there today and get a burger with Travis Tyndall potentially, because Travis from Hayes City Store and Ice House is making the dinner for the mini mullet players, and then we'll do the big event tomorrow. I'll be live there 6 a.m. at the Lost Pines Golf Club, Hyatt Lost Pines Resort. So Buck will be back with me tomorrow morning. Well, Mike Craven is here. And Mike, we were talking football. By the way, Gillies and Urban Cowboy mentioned. I like that. This says, may the 4th be with you, Ty. May the 4th be with you. You said you weren't much of a Star Wars person, right? You were anti anything 80s?
Around with the start of COVID, I did start watching the Star Wars. I started from the beginning and watched some Star Wars. It's fine. I wish somebody had explained to me that it was just a Western in the sky early on, because I would have watched it sooner, because I do love Western shows. But I've gotten into The Mandalorian. I really enjoy The Mandalorian. Andor was a good series. So I've enjoyed the Disney Plus series, and that kind of retroactively made me go back and watch Star Wars.
I enjoy the original 6, and I can't get behind any of the new ones.
Well, it's probably because you watched the original 6 first, and you had like this frame of reference. Like I don't care if it's canon or not, right? Like I have no idea what's true or what's not. So none of that stuff bothers me because I don't have a frame of reference.
I just don't know any of these new spin-off characters that they're. I mean, obviously, I know The Mandalorian was okay, but I stopped watching it. It just didn't retain my interest.
Happy Days, Arnold's and Happy Days. That, again, you guys, I'm the only 150 that would know that. You guys probably didn't watch Happy Days with Fonzie back in the day, the Fonz. Speaking of big TV shows, I saw where Kevin Costner, it's official now, he's exiting Yellowstone after 5 seasons. Ongoing conflict with Taylor Sheridan, the co-creator.
And his wife filed for divorce.
I know. What's going on with Kevin? It's like this guy's having a rough one. I mean, he can't get along with his co-creator, Taylor Sheridan.
He's forgotten that he's also an actor.
He's
like he thinks he's actually the character in Yellowstone when he's really just a Hollywood actor.
Yeah, Has he become John Dutton now?
You're right. Well, he's like Mr. Sunbelt, rusted. It's like, dude, you're just the guy from all the movies.
The movies. But yeah, he co-created that, and the word is he just didn't want to work that much anymore. He wanted to film it all.
It's very millennial of him.
Yes, but now, he leaves Yellowstone, and his wife of 19 years are finally filed for divorce here within 3 or 4 days for Kevin Costner. Buck off to that. Also on a Buck Off Thursday, some other Buck Offs that we like. How about, as we mentioned earlier, the reports now that Bill Belichick made a trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first round last Thursday, specifically to screw with the Jets. I love this. I mean, now it's a division rival, so there's some not just gamesmanship here, but there's some strategy, because the Patriots were picking 14th, and the Jets ended up picking 15th after the Aaron Rodgers trade, and they swapped picks with the Packers. They could have been picking 13 ahead of the Patriots, but the trade, they swapped. So the Jets were sitting at 15. The reports and then several league GMs told Sports Illustrated they believe that Belichick made the trade with Pittsburgh where he went from the 14th pick with New England back to 17, let Pittsburgh come into their spot for the low price of a fourth-round pick. I mean, it wasn't a lot. Was specifically did not let the Jets take Broderick Jones, the big right tackle or the tackle out of Georgia, and he was the last first-round tackle on the board. Jets needed a tackle. Patriots make the move. And look, that's probably pretty smart because you want to be able to get after Aaron Rodgers, and the kid from Georgia is pretty dang good. He's not a Jet now, he's a Steeler, so he's not in your division.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You still got the guy you wanted, the cornerback Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon.
And didn't have to give too much, up for it and all that kind of stuff. But, yeah, I think that's to keep with our theme, buck on for that one.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, this is a dirty pool. Like, this is the job, right? You're supposed to be beating these teams. If you can keep them from fixing a need in a league that's hard to address needs at left tackle, then you go ahead and you do that. That's 3D chess from Bill Belichick.
Yeah, and that's why I love the draft, man. All the moves that are made and the behind the scenes stuff, and Bill Belichick, and you still get the cornerback you wanted, and you keep the last tackle on the board away from. By the way, one other NFL draft note, then we'll get back into these college football conversations. Remember the massive tackle from Ohio State, DeJuan Jones, 6'8", 330. Everybody thought, like Pro Football Focus had him mocked as a top 20 pick in this draft going in, and he didn't go until like the 4th round to the Browns. So the aftermath of that is apparently he had weight issues at the combine, and then at his pro day workout, he admitted to too many general managers and teams that his dream was to play in the NBA, not the NFL. So he got to the whole tag of he doesn't love football. And you know this, Mike, in that sport, at that level, if you don't love football, you're going to hate your job. Yeah, and if you hate your job playing there, you're going to get whipped. And if you can't keep your weight in shape, I thought that was interesting that he was another one of those first-round tackles. That's one the Jets could have taken because he was still there, but he slid all the way to Cleveland in the 4th round because of his poor interviews and his passion for the game. I found that interesting.
It's one of those deals that it may be true, you just don't say it out loud. There's a lot of guys in the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball that have plenty of other interests. We talked earlier in the first hour about Jamar Chase and Micah Parsons and Sewell skipping their year during COVID, and we all sat there and questioned, do they really love football? Is this going to drop them down the board? How are they going to react to professional football if they can't get through college football? Now they're like 3 of the best players at their position in the league, right? Yeah. So I don't know how much is that. I would be more concerned about the weight issues than if he dreamt of being a professional football player or not.
Yeah. I thought that because I remember at the draft going, what about DeJuan Jones? Where's he? I mean, he's mocked everywhere to be good and goes in the 4th round.
I figured they found something in his knee or something.
And maybe
That's
there was that too.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the red flags that drop you down. Doesn't mean he can't join in the 4th round. He's still going to get an opportunity to go to Cleveland and make it. He still could be good. It's just trying to eliminate those question marks that high in the draft. All right, Mike, from your tour of all the Texas schools for Dave Campbell's Texas football, and first in our coaches corner we spoke about Rice and Baylor. What about Houston? We talked a little bit about Dana Holgorsen yesterday. Houston is the next team on the schedule, October 21st. That's after the OU game and a bye week. The Longhorns will travel to Houston to play the Cougars, and you cited a lot of issues with the Cougars at this point, replacing a lot of people.
They've lost 10 offensive linemen from scholarship in the last 2 cycles. Some of that from graduation, but a decent amount of that from transfers. When I was there to do the magazine in Dana Holgorsen's office, he has up the depth chart, and next to the depth chart, he has like some slots where you fill in 1 through 25 scholarship opportunities available. Well, now with the portal, that goes past 25, and it went up to 38 for him, and he has markers of what positions are available, right? There's QB, there's 1 spot next to it, 1 running back, 1 spot. There was 5 offensive lineman spots, and that's not for the 2024 recruiting cycle. That's for now, to get the team ready for the season. They weren't able to have a spring practice this year, and the reason given was because of the weather. It was a really bad weather day that I think it was April 7th. On a Friday, but they only had 7 scholarship offensive linemen. It's a lot like what Sark dealt with when he first got to Texas, where they weren't going to split it up and have a real true game as well. They've been crushed by the transfer portal. They have 17 guys coming over in the summer that they need to play, not just 17 incoming true freshmen, but 17 portal guys that they're going to need to be a real part of that defense. If you look at their top, their depth chart right now, a place like OurLads.com, there's just more holes than there are fills because you just don't know what it's going to be. And so Holgorsen was hired for Houston to be in the position this year to come into the Big 12 and compete right away. Maybe not win a Big 12 championship, but to compete right away.
you look at the roster, you look at the recent success, and you project them forward. I have a hard time finding 7 wins, 8 wins, much less 9 or 10. I think it's more likely they miss a bowl game than they compete for a Big 12 championship.
And that may cost Dana Holgorsen the gig because he
Absolutely.
was brought in specifically to be ready for this move, which they're finally making after banging the drum for years to join the Big 12. And they will do so this year. And they will play Texas one time on Houston.
Yeah.
Texas is way out.
And they lost Alton McCaskill at running back.
Yeah, that was the
who
big
is
one.
the star of their show, probably going to go to Colorado.
Yeah, you wonder if he realized, man, we're not going to be very good up front. Clayton Tune, their quarterback, is gone.
No, he was in tears when he told Holgorsen he was leaving. That was look, we've all been 20 before, and most of us probably didn't come from a whole lot of money. If somebody at 20 years old came and offered me 6 figures to go study psychology other place than UTSA, I probably would have taken it, and so these are still business. He tore his ACL last year, and so I think if you're someplace like Colorado, you can go, look, this is very fickle. This may be the most earning opportunity that you have in your life. You have family that needs you, all this kind of stuff. Come play here, and we can give you some money. And Houston simply cannot keep up with that. And that's going to be Houston's biggest thing is you see the city of Houston, and you think, well, they must have a lot of NIL money. Well, they've had college football fans kind of in purgatory for 25 years, and so they don't have the NIL. They don't have the support set up to pay all these guys money. They lost Alton pure and simple because of financial reasons.
And do we know where he's going to go yet?
He's going to go to Colorado, I'd imagine.
Play for Deion Sanders. Seems like the place he's headed. I want to ask you one other thing, and we'll get to TCU and Texas Tech coming up later in the show. But
I should say allegedly.
Allegedly. On Houston specifically, what were your thoughts when because the Texans drafted Tank Dell? They traded up to take the wide receiver. A lot of Texans fans were wondering, well, Jalen Hyatt from Tennessee was still on the board. Is that a smart move? What's your read on Tank and the impact he can be in the pros?
Yeah, if Dana Holgorsen knows anything, it's inside receivers. I mean, that's what he was when he played for Hal Mumme. That's what he coached when he coached for Mike Leach. That's kind of his bread and butter. And he compares Tank Dell to Tavon Austin. Okay. He thinks he's like the best slot receiver he's coached. It's either Tavon or Tank Dell. Those are pretty high words. I think he's going to have a really solid year. I mean, it's going to be about the quarterback and how the quarterback can play there. But he'll be able to gobble up a lot of catches. He's unguardable in the slot. You put him on the outside and you can get physical with him. He's a very small, slender guy. So you can get physical with him when he's on the outside. But in the slot, when you can't jam him, he gets a free release. He's one of the quickest players I've ever covered.
And interestingly, in the post-draft analysis of the Texans, there was a report that C.J. Stroud and Tank Dell formed a close bond at the Combine. Like they met at the Combine. They were friends. And that it was maybe CJ that said, hey, man, if you get a chance, go get Tank Dell. And he's unbelievably explosive out of the slot. He's undersized, but, man, quick as a hiccup. And he is a guy, Houston has Robert Woods on the outside. They've got John Mechie, Noah Brown. They needed that guy in the slot to really give C.J. Stroud. And remember, they signed Dalton Schultz as well from the Cowboys as a free agent. So weapons for a young quarterback, always important.
He'll also help immediately in the punt return game.
Think Clayton Tune can have a chance to have an NFL career?
I do. I think he'll be one of those awesome backups that you don't hate gets into the game. There's some backups that you just pray never get into the game. There's some backups that could come in there and win a couple football games. I think Brock Purdy proved last year that you have the pieces around you and they don't ask you to do a whole lot. A lot of guys can go win NFL football games. It's just nowadays we put so much on the quarterback. It's hard to replace Aaron Rodgers with somebody who can't do that when you've built a whole team around having Aaron Rodgers. And so if he can find his situation where they're running the football, playing defense, and he can grow into it, he's got a whole lot of talent.
Our TCU and Texas Tech to come, and our overviews with Mike Craven on the Big 12 teams and the teams from Texas that you were an eyewitness to this spring. We'll have more of that coming up, plus David Pierce at 8:30. Coming next, though, it is Hot or Not with T.Y. Callahan's General Store, folks. Always a good day to make it a Callahan's Day, no matter the needs you have for your home, for your yard, for your pets. As I always tell you, Callahan's has that incredible selection of pet food, better for your dogs, especially if you have big dogs and big breeds. They've got a tremendous selection of the best stuff you can get. A lot of it is made right here and locally sourced product, made here in Central Texas. Go learn about that. Also, for the yards, we tell you Callahan's, of course, powering our tour of Central Texas golf courses month by month, and we'll pick a new one here in the month of May shortly and announce that. But Callahan's also the place to get your yard and gardens and everything you got going golf course ready. Make it look like a golf course. You can do that at Callahan's with all the essentials. They've got the fertilizers, the organic and conventional stuff you need, everything to keep it rolling, the weed and feeds, and, of course, get the yard looking great. Gardens as well, like the Buck likes to say. Those April showers should be bringing the May flowers if you did it right with our friends at Callahan's General Store. Also, the hardware section, housewares as well. Everything you need, make a stop in. Check them out. Say hello. Meet the great people at Callahan's General Store. Online at Callahan'sGeneralStore.com. It's always a good day to make it a Callahan's Day.
What's hot and what's not.
We've been all over the place today on a Buck Off and Buck On Thursday, fictional bars and restaurants. We had fun with that. We had a bit of a draft. I think our winner's Moe's Tavern from The Simpsons, Bada Bing from Sopranos, Cheers, of course, The Establishment was the name of the show. I always like the Drunken Clam from Family Guy. That's classic. Monk's Cafe in Seinfeld. You like Jem's Saloon in Deadwood.
Love that show. That's a tremendous show.
Never went deep into Deadwood. I know it looks tremendous.
Yeah, movie. They did a movie that like happened 10 years after the show ended, and it wasn't as great. But the actual show, just tremendous. Especially if you love that old kind of Western time.
That's something I got to go revisit because it looks really good.
I always liked the McDonald's and Richie Rich.
Oh yeah, McDonald's.
You know, like he had that in his house, just somebody to make a McDonald's whenever he wanted to. I'm on the road a lot, so I eat McDonald's more than I'd like to admit. But McDonald's in your house for like 1 o'clock in the morning, awesome.
Do you have a go-to Mickey D's order or what?
I'm a chicken nuggets guy. Chicken nuggets, barbecue sauce, and Dr. Pepper. The thing I like about McDonald's is the Dr. Pepper always tastes good. Sometimes you go to places and it's like, well, that Dr. Pepper stunk, and half the reason I stopped here was to get a fountain drink. With McDonald's, it's always good.
Next time you're there, get a high C with no ice.
High C, no ice.
Wags taught me that. That was a game changer.
Well, I have one addiction left in my life, and it's Dr. Pepper. So it's hard for me to I try not to waste any of my Dr. Pepper opportunities.
There you go. And I just don't do fast food. It's amazing. We ever have fast food conversations? I always say if I do fast food, it's usually we're heading somewhere on a trip, and it's usually breakfast, like a Egg McMuffin. And
McDonald's
an
breakfast is
good.
It's magical.
Well, that's the only reason I eat fast food.
About magical.
Like I don't leave my house on a Tuesday and go get McDonald's.
Right.
You know, like
you're on
I'm
the
just
road. I
on
get
the
it.
road so much that it's like
Well, it makes sense.
How do you not?
Yeah, and you can't stop and eat at a restaurant. You just need to keep moving.
You
I get it.
Don't have enough time.
I get that, and I understand it completely. I have a more stay around here lifestyle, so I can eat lunch at home and bring my lunch, whatever I need to do. Ty, what do you have for us in hot or not, my friend? Outside of high is high C? Is that orange? Is it red? What are we going here?
I like the orange high C.
Okay,
I'm not a fruit punch guy, but yeah, great combo. Get a
Why no
quarter
ice?
pounder with some high. Just because you get more of the drink and it's already cold anyways.
Yeah, it doesn't get warm. High C can't get warm.
Is
that right?
I've never. You ever had hot high C? It feels like it just stays at that weird kind of like not
It's
quite
like a thermos.
frozen, but
it's like
cold
its own thermos. That's
yeah,
awesome.
it's like the red stuff that's in a thermostat.
Mercury.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Well, no ice in the high C. And then I had a question for y'all. You know, it's a slow day, but I've seen some mock drafts for fantasy football starting to come out.
Yes.
And is Bijan Robinson a top 3 pick in fantasy football this year?
You know what? I think maybe yes, but at the same time, they've got Tyler Algiers there. They've got Cordell Patterson. You got to figure out how they're going to divvy up carries.
He's starting off the bat.
Well, of course he is. You don't take a guy 8th and not. You got to make him the centerpiece of the offense. But they got other dudes. I would think top 5 for sure, but top 3. I mean, look, we'll start looking into fantasy football when it gets closer. But I got to think just off the top of my head, Christian McCaffrey is going to be a really high pick now that he's had a full offseason in San Francisco with. Kyle Shanahan. They're going to build that offense around he and Deebo Samuel, no doubt. They have quarterback issues, but so early they're going to lean on Christian. They acquired him last year in the middle of the season. I also, Jalen Hurts would have to be a really high pick.
Yeah, but you don't take quarterbacks in the first round.
Jalen Hurts won people leagues last year big time because he scored so many touchdowns running. I mean, he scored 10 or 12 touchdowns on the ground in addition to all the touchdowns he threw, and his rushing yards count. Jalen Hurts was a beast. I know that's not popular, but, man, it's production. That's what that guy did. If you ever played against Jalen Hurts or in a game, you got whooped most weeks. And then he got hurt late in the year, which hurt some people right through the playoffs. I know that. But we'll run through that. But would I make Bijan a top 5 pick? Mike, you?
Ooh, this is something about me. I don't play fantasy football. I don't play fantasy sports. I gamble so much on the games that the fantasy gets in my way.
I have the same issue.
You know, where it's like I need Des Bryant to catch a touchdown, but I got the Cowboys -3. You know what I mean? And
it's for me. It's a kind of you check it midweek, set your lineup, check it right before the game, make sure you don't have anyone that's injured, and then Monday morning, I'm like, did I win or not? I'm
in on so many of the games. I have enough action on it that I don't need to know what the running back's doing to make it interesting. Because I do think that's what fantasy football is, right? It's a way to make a bunch of games that may not be interesting if you don't have a rooting interest interesting. And that's great.
And
for
the gamble,
me,
too.
And for me, my gambling just comes on the line, rather than on the players.
Christian McCaffrey, the first pick. Justin Jefferson is a go-to receiver. And they had Jordan Addison in Minnesota. Cooper Kupp's back. Austin Eckler's a name, but he's been in a bit of a dispute with the Chargers. And then Bijan, got to like Saquon Barkley. I mean, he's a beast. Derrick Henry still. But yeah, it's interesting. Becoming more and more receiver-driven.
Yeah, I was about to say, I haven't played in like 5 to 10 years. And the last time I played fantasy football, you took a running back for the first pick for like the first 2 rounds. Basically.
Receivers are becoming more consistent with the catches. We'll come back. B&E on the horn. Dr. Greg Eckert, folks, is my dentist. He's Austin's dentist. Bucky as well, and so many folks, almost 30 years here in Central Texas as Austin's dentist. But, man, the new opportunity for you is here, right? Oral hygiene's important. Whatever you do, general, biannual trips into the dentist, he's the best for that general care for you and your family. But if you want a new smile, and this is an opportunity that's come down the line here pretty recently, the ability to get a brand new smile in one day, one trip in. Doesn't take weeks, doesn't take several trips in and spending time without teeth and all that goes into that. It is a one-time situation with the permanently secured dental implants with Dr. Greg Eckert. All you have to do is get in there and meet with him. If you have a smile that you're not confident in, you just don't like it, it's, you grind your teeth down like I have, or you've got pain when you eat, and any of those reasons, that can change your life. It really can, because you go in with a smile that you're not confident in and don't like taking pictures and all of those things, and you come out with the smile that you've always dreamed of, and Dr. Eckert can get you there with his team, and it takes one trip in. I'm going to be doing some work with Doc Eckert this summer. As I've always said and revealed, I grind my teeth so I have a mouthpiece that I now wear, but damage was done over the course of my life, and so we're going to rebuild some of the stuff. Mine's a little smaller than the big ones that he does, but man, looking forward to it. Looking forward to the new smile, and Dr. Eckert can do that for you as well. 345-3166 is the phone number, 512-345-3166. Find them online and set up that easy consultation with the great people at Dr. Eckert Dentistry. Go online, dreckert.com, and always remember, it's Eckert with a U, U-E-C-K-E-R-T. And what a Thursday. Good buck-ons and buck-offs, fictional bars and restaurants, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame conversation. Who's in this class, but who should be in that's not. That's been fun as well. And a lot of good football chatter with Mike Craven of Dave Campbell's Texas Football, formerly the Austin American Statesman. We've been talking about teams that are on the Longhorn schedule that you have visited and seen here this spring during spring practice with the coaches and the players. Last hour we talked about the Houston Cougars, Rice Owls, and Baylor Bears. Coming up, we'll hit a little TCU talk with Sonny Dykes coming off that magical year. A lot to replace, and, of course, Joey McGuire and Texas Tech as we roll on through that. Also, just some general thoughts on the Longhorns. But as Ty said in the Hot or Not, slow night. I mean, there wasn't a ton. I mean, obviously the NBA game was on, but it was zero drama, blowout city, which we'll get to coming up in the headlines. There were hockey games going on, but not a lot of top sports stories this morning, so we're doing some fun stuff there and talking plenty of college football. What were you taking in? I told you I was watching a couple Ted Lasso episodes. I'm going to catch up on that show.
How's the new season?
It's okay. It's not as good, I don't believe, but it's still Ted Lasso, and they've got funny. It's well written.
I tell you what, I'm happy I didn't take your advice on hedging that game last night. I stuck with Boston -10, and man, I was a little worried about it, but
because you made a bet. Have to watch that one. You made a bet on the on Boston when it was minus.
They were -10.
-10, and then when they announced Joel Embiid was going to play, it jumped all the way down to like 4.5.
6, 5, 5.5, 6. Yeah.
That game too, though, after you win game one on somebody else's court, is always kind of like, we did what we came to do here.
Yeah.
We won home court. Like, I think the Lakers get beat by 15 tonight for the
Definitely.
same reason, right?
I
Like
agree.
they did what they were supposed to do. They'll kind of like take a rest game here. Golden State will win it, and they'll go back to LA.
Well, especially veteran teams, right? I mean, they know what it takes. You don't got to win 7 games. You got to win 4 games over 7. And the reason it was such a blowout last night is once Philadelphia realized this wasn't their night and Boston was going to bring the energy, they kind of shut it down too. And that's it's a long series. So, whether you lose by a point or you lose by 29 points or whatever the total was last night, who cares? It's a loss is a loss. Let's get back to Philadelphia. We accomplished our mission. We stole a game without Embiid. And, those series, and you mentioned it with the Lakers, I mean, it's when both teams are playing with all the energy and at their peak. Those are when these series get really, really good. And usually it takes a little bit to get it there in a long series. Obviously, the Lakers came out on fire and with all the energy in Game 1. And, they did a great job on Steph. But I tend to agree with you that tonight it flips back. Draymond Green on his podcast was talking about he needs to play better. And everybody's mad at Jordan Poole for taking bad shots.
Yeah.
It's a long series. And
Anthony Davis will have his where'd he go game.
Where did he go game? Yeah, I mean, and that's just the ebb and flow of a 7-game series, but you got to win 4 times. And those are 2 really fun semifinal series to have the old school rivalry with Boston and Philadelphia rekindled. The Sixers feels like their best chance with Embiid as an MVP now. Boston was in it last year in the finals. So, and then of course, Steph and LeBron. Must-see TV. That's tonight, by the way, 8 o'clock. They're going to play, and that is absolutely must-see TV.
Only 8 o'clock?
Only 8 o'clock. Yeah, because it's the only game. It's the only game, so they're going to stand alone and drop it early for the middle of the country and the East Coast to see a little bit more of that game because it'll get a gangbuster rating. Let's hope it's a good game. I mean, if it turns into last night where it's just completely one-sided, that won't be a lot of fun. But that is the one game tonight. And we'll get you a preview of what's coming. So you hit that bet. Did you hit anything else last night, Ty, the professional gambler? I think you and my man Mike Craven would get along pretty good.
I had a pretty good day 2 days ago. Yesterday, I bet down a unit, so pretty much even. Not much. I had a little too many. I had like 8 bets, so that's where I make my mistakes. I get a little too excited here early in the morning sometimes, and think everything looks amazing when. I was on like the Pirates yesterday. Somebody texted in earlier and asked if I like the Pirates today. Yeah, I do against Tampa Bay just because of the value there. They're like plus 175.
Pirates are good this year.
Yeah, and they're really not that much worse
first month
than the Rays. So that's my pick of the day. Take the Pirates today, money line.
All right. So, Ty's giving gambling advice on the text line. I love that. Good job. Yeah, that's fun. It's fun. It's funny. I think last year was the first year in a long time I didn't really make many bets. I probably got to the point where I was too stressed out during the weekend and I got a lot to do.
Well, the NFL.
I wasn't losing big money, but you put enough out there, you're like, oh, man. And then gambling's fun, but it's also difficult.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And sometimes it's not fun.
Well, if
sometimes it's not fun.
How many hours do you need doing something before you're a master technically?
10,000.
10,000.
I don't think you can become a master of gambling, though. You really can't.
I don't
It's
know.
gambling.
I don't know.
I'm trying.
I'm trying. Well,
It's
let
like
me know when
Bucky
you get
trying to win the lottery.
Let me know when you get there,
Trying.
and then I'll just like ride your coattails
Yeah.
and borrow your picks.
Yeah. So I started a thing at the Statesman called Craven's Corner.
I remember that.
And we've continued it through Dave Campbell's. And in football, I'm something like plus 70 over the last 40 years, just in games, like, and against the spread.
4 years or 40?
Like last 4 years.
4 years.
And they're all in print or on video. Like, they're
They're documented.
Yeah, you can go figure it out. Like, because all I do is football. Like I don't have to, everybody else that I know, like they cover other sports and stuff. I only cover football. And
I've bet on soccer.
I will bet on soccer as well.
I got soccer bets.
Playoff stuff, but I have a hard time. I like when you were talking about just betting on the Pirates. Like it would be hard for me to bet on a May baseball game.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah,
it's not like I'm looking deep into the
get somebody
analytics.
to talk to you a little bit. Has it changed? Has the speed of the baseball game changed gambling at all? Like, has it changed strategies in gambling and what you're looking for?
This year, there's been a lot of overs.
Okay.
I think that I don't know if that's a direct correlation with the pitch
Well,
clock.
that's what they wanted, right? They wanted more offense. I mean, all the rules changes by baseball were for quicker games, but more offense and more, balls in play. They got rid of the shifts. They got the pitchers have to work quicker. So they want more action. The game had become strikeouts and home runs. I mean, that's really what it was because you'd see 4 outfielders like a beer league softball game, and knowing that's where the guy hits the ball. So what could be a gapper is an easy out, and they're trying to eliminate that. So it would stand to reason that the scores are going to go up because that's what they're wanting to do. That's what the rule changes were for.
I've definitely been watching a lot more baseball even when I'm not betting on it, just because the games are quicker. I've noticed that for sure.
When I was sitting here yesterday, I was here for 2 hours, and they had the replay of the Rangers game going on. And when I sat down, it was in the second inning, and it was done before I left.
Well, that's even faster.
Like, that's amazing.
They cut out a lot of the stuff.
But they're averaging, because I was up in DFW over the weekend, and they were talking about on one of their morning shows on the ticket that it's like 2 hours and 10 minutes, 2 hours and 15 minutes. A lot of those games, like they're in and
Garrett
out.
Cole, Thursday night of the draft last week, the Yankees played the Rangers, and Garrett Cole started for the Yankees. It was a 2-hour, 9-minute game. And that's why in ballparks they've stopped stopping to sell beer at the 7th inning stretch. Now they're selling it all the way into the 9th inning
because they're losing money,
big time revenue, man. Those last couple of Bud Light skis are no one's getting them anywhere. They're in the car already, heading home.
That'd be hard for me because I'm a leave event early guy, to like beat traffic.
I'm with you on that.
But like, if they're only 2 hours long, you'd barely have just gotten there before you're like, all right, honey, let's try to get to our car before all these crazy people start driving out here.
Can I admit something? Because I am too a leave early guy. Remember when Texas beat Notre Dame on Tyrone Swoop's touchdown in overtime? I didn't see it.
Oh wow!
I left because I had been sitting up in the Bud Light suite with the Brown Distributing people, great people, but it was Memorial Day, remember? Labor Day, and so, but I had to work the next day because I had to do the show, and I knew if I wait, I got to see this. But if I don't leave, because I was parked in the parking garage,
you're done.
I'm done. I'm not going to get home till 1:00, and so I hightailed it out to be the first guy out of the garage, and I watched it on replay, but I missed the jubilation.
I was in my dorm room at Texas Tech for that one. That's the night I realized that most people that go to Texas Tech are either an OU, an A&M, or a Texas Longhorn.
Oh, you got crushed.
Because I all my pledge brothers and me were just we had our first party of college that night.
Well,
and we all left early to watch Texas play. Yeah. If that tells you anything about Texas Tech.
Because if you do stay, you know what that is getting out, especially if you parked in the parking garage. That
you never get
beating.
Yeah.
I skipped out a little early. I was there to the end of the Bama game though. That was Saturday, right? So and I didn't have any duties afterwards. I didn't mind waiting a little bit.
In the middle of the day.
The best place, because I'm not even worried about like what time I get home. I just hate sitting in traffic. Like that's one of my favorite parts of my job is by the time I'm doing everything I need to do in the press box, everybody's gone, so I can just roll out.
Yeah. That's true. At a game. Mike Craven, if he is here, of course. Dave Campbell's Texas football. We'll talk some more football coming up. Ty Henderson is here. They're both professional gamblers, apparently. That says if Ty doesn't stop gambling before 10,000 hours, he's a slow learner or he's a unicorn who can overcome the juice. The juice always gets you.
Somebody's got to win.
Somebody's got to win.
I'm telling you, I'm on the path to professional.
Okay. I think for both of you, it's when you quit your other jobs and that becomes your full-time job. That's when you're a professional.
I make more money gambling than I do here.
Well,
mine's about even. Mine's about even, probably. Yeah, I have to claim it on my taxes and stuff.
Do you?
Yeah.
Nice. Start hanging out with you guys less.
That's why I get to just be a middle of the road sports writer and just like not have to deal with anything. You know?
Yeah, and that. And now the eyes on Texas multicast, which is
there you go.
Going to make us all rich and famous one day. You know what I'm saying? Hey, let's get to the headlines, trending topics from last night and right now. Let's get them. Top Gun Equipment Rentals bring it to you. Mentioned zero drama in the NBA last night, just the one game. Celtics rout the Sixers 121-87. Joel Embiid did return from that knee injury, scored 15 points in 26 minutes. One more game coming tonight. It's the Lakers and the Warriors out west, 8 o'clock tip. Lakers took game one, of course. Some Texas football news this morning. Word that the Horns have added a special teams piece to their 2024 recruiting class. A commitment yesterday from Fort Lauderdale, Florida punter Michael Kern from St. Thomas Aquinas High School, ranked as one of the top 5 prep punters in the nation. Also from the 40 Acres, 5th-ranked Texas softball team back in action after 11 days off. They run-ruled Sam Houston 12-2. Major League Pro Baseball last night, Round Rock split a day-night doubleheader in Reno. Massive developing story from soccer with Lionel Messi apparently headed out of PSG. The 35-year-old's contract set to expire this summer. Messi in discussions with the Saudi Arabian government about joining the Saudi Pro League. Some reports suggest Messi could make as much as $400 million annually. Hockey, HEB Center at Cedar Park last night. Texas Stars finish off a 3-game sweep of Rockford in the first round of the Calder Cup playoffs 4-2. And interesting piece of news in the NFL from the Cowboys camp. At a charity event yesterday in Dallas, Cowboys star Micah Parsons told reporters that he's skipping the team's voluntary offseason program in order to focus on bulking up, adding weight. He wants to play defensive end full-time in 2023. Hey, so it's interesting that the Micah Parsons story, we talked about it early in the first hour, but Micah Parsons is working out here in Austin at the Collective. Jeremy Hills, remember Jeremy, the former Longhorn running back, and his brother Tony? Jeremy has done really well with these clubs, the Collective, which with a K, and these things are becoming pretty legendary around the state and around the country for the trainers that they have, and the facility it's a private club. Like, you can't just walk in there and work out. You have to have a membership, and I don't want to say it's exclusive, but you get what you pay for. And I know Jeremy and his team have built those to be pretty much everything an NFL facility has. Like, when you go in, they've got the Colton hot tubs, and they've got all the training facilities, and pretty much you can do anything in there that you could do in an NFL facility. This in addition to the weight rooms and the workout equipment. They have everything, and both are really popular. I mean, I know a lot of folks go to them, and now Micah Parsons is working out there. He's got a trainer, and it's interesting that he wants to bulk up. Now, here's the question, and I'm assuming someone will ask Jerry Jones and Dan Quinn soon enough. Is this his plan or their plan? I mean, because he would have a financial incentive to become a full-time defensive end. There's no doubt about that, right? I mean, the rush ends, Nick Bosa. These guys make more money than linebackers. That's just in the marketplace. Now, Mike is a different type, but at the same time, is that what Dan Quinn wants? Does Dan Quinn want him to – now, he says he's not going to play over 255. He just wants to get stronger to be able to anchor better. But, does Dan Quinn want him to be a full-time defensive end becomes, I think, the interesting question there.
I mean, I just think he's too talented at it to not be one. You know, I think in the ideal world, you'd have him playing all over the place. He's a wild card. You keep sometimes you use him at linebackers in certain situations against certain teams. Some teams you use him more at defensive end. But he's so good at it, and I know that you can't split time. But we were talking about the 10,000 hours to perfect something, to be a master of it. It's got to be difficult to learn the intricacies of defensive end or the intricacies of linebacker at the NFL level while you're splitting time with both of them. I'd imagine if you just put all of your eggs in one basket and you went towards that position, you could become the elite of the elite. And quietly, Micah's a good linebacker. He's not an elite linebacker.
Yeah, he can struggle in coverage sometimes.
He's an elite edge rusher, like an elite edge rusher. So go do the thing you can do really, really well, and we'll find some guys who can be as good at linebacker as you.
Well, there's not much not to like about Micah. He can play anywhere. His motor never stops. He's 4.3 40 guy. It's just the explosiveness has just been ridiculous since he's gotten into this league. And I don't want to say it's been a surprise, but as we talked about, he didn't play his final year at Penn State, so you didn't see him. And so he's just a burst on this scene. But you're right. I mean, put him opposite DeMarcus Ware and let him get after the quarterback. I mean, you've got a 1-2 punch as good as any in the league. And, the Cowboys drafted DeMarvion Overshown. Does that help? Can DeMarvion become and do some of those positional flexibility type of things that they can move him around like they were doing with Micah? We'll see. But Dan Quinn, obviously, we'll have addressed. But he just wants to get paid as a defensive end. I get that. I mean, there's more money there.
Yep.
That's what the market says. And you mentioned a great point off the air that he could get franchise tagged. You got to predict that the Cowboys may not be ready to go full contract with him because they got to sign Trevon Diggs.
Yep.
They got to get CeeDee Lamb under contract. They just signed Dak Prescott. They got some big deals coming, and so they always have the franchise tag. So if you get tagged as a defensive end, it's a lot more money on a 1-year deal than it is as a linebacker. So you kind of understand it. And if you see Micah Parsons bumping around here in Austin, that's probably him.
Yeah.
I'll be looking for him.
Now I haven't been to the Collective, the new one. I've been to the one that's downtown. What is what's the little street off of Congress across from the Texas School for the Deaf? That's where the Collective is. It's back in there. There's a hotel there, the little cool hotel, bed and breakfast kind of thing.
That's your part of town.
My part of town. But Doc's backyard.
St. Edward's.
One of my favorite places used to be right there on the corner, and it's gone now. Now it's a shopping complex and restaurants and all that other stuff. But that's where the Collective is. It's back down that road. But cool place, really cool place. I've had a tour of that, and a neat spot. And Jeremy Hills and his team, who offices out of there, has an office in the Collective, is David Mulugeta, the great agent in the NFL, who's really be rising as one of the best in the country. I mean, he had Deshaun Watson's deal. He's got C.J. Stroud now. I mean, he's got tons of the top clients. He's based out of right here, Austin, Texas. UT grad.
Okay.
So, that thing is getting really popular. It's pretty cool. But, got to be in the club. Got to pay your way in.
That's where Bijan worked out before the draft, right?
Yeah, a lot of Longhorns are over there. A lot of Longhorns go over there and work out. I mean, Jeremy Hills, obviously, and Tony Hills, his brother. So, that's Micah Parsons news. And the Cowboys in the offseason now, he's not going to participate in their optional work. He'll be there for OTAs when they begin here in the spring. All right, Mike, on the Texas football side of things, give me your thoughts on TCU, because last hour we talked Houston, Baylor, and Rice on the Texas schedule. You visited the Horned Frogs and Sonny Dykes coming off the magical year. A lot of optimism. They went great, but now there's a lot to rebuild.
Yeah, you have a great season like that, and it recalibrates expectations. Going into year 2, it felt like this is when we kind of figure out what TCU was, and they just had such a great 2022 season that now everybody's going to expect that to be the season. And we saw Baylor go from a 12-win team that won the Big 12, that won the Sugar Bowl, down to a 6-7 team. If you're TCU, you're just trying to avoid that step back. There's going to be a step back. You can't lose your starting quarterback, your best running back, your best wide receiver, your best offensive lineman, your best defensive lineman, your best linebacker, your best secondary player without taking a step back. There's going to be a step back. It's just a matter of how big will it be. If they can take a step back to 8 or 9 wins and still kind of be in the mix for a Big 12 title, shot in October or November, I think that's a win for TCU. You're recycling out a lot of Gary Patterson's players. You're bringing in your own. I think the good news for the Horned Frogs is they think they have their quarterback on campus. Max Duggan ended up being the Heisman runner-up, but he was beat out last offseason by Chandler Morris, who was hurt in that first game against Colorado. Then Max Duggan went on its run. They feel like the wide receiver position was upgraded with JoJo Earl coming in from the slot, and that they have more depth. Maybe they don't have a Quentin Johnston, but they have more depth on the outside. Running back's going to be an interesting one, but they brought in Trey Sanders from Alabama, former IMG kid that Texas was on back in the day on the recruiting track. So offensively, they're going to score points. They brought in Kendall Briles to be the offensive coordinator from Arkansas. I never thought I'd see a Briles working at TCU.
Ugh.
That part is very, very weird. But they're going to score points. Everywhere Sonny Dykes has gone, they scored points. Even when he was at Cal and they stunk, they score a lot of points, right? So to me, the big thing is going to become defensively. There were times last year where the TCU defense was really good, and there was times last year where the TCU defense was awful. If they can become more consistent and get better, maybe the TCU offense doesn't have to be as explosive as it was the year before. But the Big 12 is still wide open. It feels like Texas is the favorite. Obviously, Vegas agrees with that. Oklahoma got the easiest schedule in the world. I still don't understand how the Big 12 allowed Oklahoma and Texas to have favorable schedules in their last year in that conference. But TCU and Kansas State might be right there in that next tier. They're recruiting as well or better than any other team in the Big 12, and they're going to portal better than any team in the Big 12 other than Texas and Oklahoma because of their DFW ties. So I think TCU is going to be okay. I think they're going to be good. Will they be 12-0 again? No. But we predicted them to be 7th in the Big 12 last year, and they overachieved. So we'll see what they do this year.
Yeah, and you knew they had Quentin Johnston, who was going to be an NFL draft pick on that team when the season began last year. But, man, Steve Avila got drafted by the Rams early 2nd round. Kendre Miller by the Saints early 3rd round. Dylan Horton to the Texans in the 4th. He led the Big 12 in sacks last year. Darius Davis to the Chargers. Hodges Tomlinson to the Rams, and then D. Winters to the 49ers. Max Duggan win the 7th round to the Chargers too. So, I mean, you have that many players drafted, and as we've said, your best player at every position.
Yeah,
this is what we talked about last hour with the Longhorns. That the Longhorns got guys back that could have tested the NFL that that have come back to provide leadership. The Jordan Whittingtons, the Christian Joneses, the defensive tackle Tavondre Sweat.
Yep.
These are all veteran players, play a lot of football, and they're all coming back for the specific reason to do what TCU did last year and run the table and go win the Big 12 championship. And that's a lot of leadership. Sonny Dykes, meanwhile, has to replace all of that he kind of rode last year. Because I do think Sonny and his staff did an amazing job of tapping into the most veteran roster in the conference and putting a chip on their shoulder, and they played at a high level. How much do they miss Garrett Riley? I mean, I thought Garrett Riley was tremendous. I mean, gosh, the Rileys, Lincoln and Garrett had Max Duggan and Caleb Williams in New York City. It seems like wherever they go, and that's why you're excited about Cade Klubnik and Clemson, that you now have Garrett Riley calling plays at Clemson. But I do like Kendall Briles, but is he Garrett Riley becomes a big question, and what does Joe Gillespie have left on the defensive side of the ball?
They're going to say all the right things, right? But, I think if you talk to Sonny, if you talk to Kendall, they think that offense that they have now and what they're going to do with it fits with Chandler a little bit more than what they've had previously, because he's going to be more of a pocket. He's going to be able to get vertical. Duggan's strength was not getting the ball deep, and so with Chandler, he wants to push the ball deep, maybe too much for his own good sometimes. I think reining him in, getting him to be smart with the football is going to be the issue for Morris, but he wants to go vertically, and if you go back to those Baylor offenses when they were really good under Art Briles and Kendall Briles, they were 4 vert going deep, aired out offenses.
Oh, yeah, they have a track team out there.
Right, and TCU's got a lot faster on the outside. They think they're going to be pretty explosive. To me, though, it's the Kendre Miller in the running game.
Yeah.
What made TCU really special last year was the balance. And if they can't have that balance this year, that puts a lot on Chandler Morris, a lot on that offensive line. If Trey Sanders, Amani Bailey, some of those guys can step at the running back position, they're going to be fine offensively. And then it just becomes coming up with those playmakers on the defensive side of the ball.
Good stuff. Mike Craven hanging, talking football, TCU. I like Chandler Morris, but at the same time, you also have to add the intangible of Max Duggan's toughness and leadership. I mean, that was gritting out some of those close games, those comebacks. I mean, there was a lot of an intangible there that Max brought to the field that wound him up in the finals for the Heisman Trophy. Chandler Hart has all the talent. Can he bring some of that leadership and toughness as well? We'll talk some Texas Tech later in the show as we hit all the schools that you saw that are on the Longhorn schedule. Also, somebody I mentioned, I looked it up. The hotel where the collective is downtown is on Academy Drive, and the hotel there is called Hotel St. Cecilia. Have you ever seen that? It's kind of it's a beautiful little spot. It's kind of buried in these trees. If you ever want to do a staycation, you want to check that out. A little boutique hotel. It's called the Hotel St. Cecilia. Matter of fact, the Foo Fighters wrote a cool little album called St. Cecilia. I think it was like a 5-song EP, but they stayed there when they were in Austin, or at least Dave Grohl did. Stayed in that hotel, and when they were taping ACL and doing some stuff when he was in town here, and that came out of it. So if you like the Foo Fighters, check that out. But that's where the collective is. And the other one, according to our buddy Mike Harge, who shot me a text, that the new collective with a K is up on 183 near Camp Gladiator. So thank you, Harge. Coming back, David Pierce talking Texas baseball. Weekly visit with the Longhorn skipper. Only 2 Big 12 conference series left. We'll preview with the coach next. There it is, folks. Viking Fence. We have great debates, great conversation on the radio about who's better than this, sports, so that who's going to win, gambling like we just did. There's no gamble when you're talking to Viking Fence. I can promise you that. There is no debate. 50 years Viking Fence has been the premier fence company in Austin, Texas since 1972. And all they do to this day is fences. I mean, they just do them better than anyone, right? Whatever the division or fence needs you have, whether it's a wood privacy fence for your home or business, an iron fence, gate, automatic gate, handrail, chain link fences, perimeter security, gate automation. They do it all, but they do it better than anyone. And what they've done over the 5 decades, as I've told you, is just invest in the quality of the material and the ability to have their own on-site lumber mill to produce the different grades of Western red cedar for your wood privacy fence. Their own pre-staining equipment for that Western red cedar to stain it ahead of time, instead of doing it afterwards. What a hassle saver that is, and it's a better quality when you do it when they're pre-staining equipment. Same with the iron fences and gates. If you're going that direction, they've got the iron facility with the bending equipment and cold and hot forging capability. It's everything you need. For 50 years, there is no match to Viking Fence. 837-6411, the phone number, 837-6411. Find them online with that great website at vikingfence.com. They do it all and they're still locally owned and operated. It's Viking Fence. When you think fence in Central Texas, think Viking.
Bucky and Erin.
Oh, man, iconic. May the 4th be with you. It is Star Wars Day on this May the 4th. Sure you can have some fun with that. Also, we're talking about the Hotel St. Cecilia. Somebody texted us and said that's Rachel Ray's favorite hotel. Well, you know what's interesting about the Hotel St. Cecilia there, Mike Craven, is that the hotel itself, the little boutique hotel in South Austin, right near the Collective, that's why we were talking about that, it's created in honor of the patron saint of music and poetry. So a lot of the creative types like to stay there. I also know this for a fact. When Jack Ingram called Mac Brown late at night and said, hey, we should do that old Willie and Daryl thing, and they started Mac, Jack, and McConaughey, that big event, he was staying at the Hotel St. Cecilia writing music, writing tunes.
That's where ideas flow.
It's where ideas flow.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, they just had it last weekend, the Mac, Jack, and McConaughey with Garth Brooks, and raised millions and millions for the kids of Central Texas. That you can credit the Hotel St. Cecilia for that.
I've seen the Hotel San Jose over there.
Yeah, that's
really
over on
nice.
Congress itself. That's a cool spot, too.
Yeah.
But this one's tucked back in on Academy. You got to kind of try to find it for sure. But good stuff. Let's go to the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline. He's waiting for us to talk some Texas baseball. Longhorns, no midweek game this week. Coming off the 3 games at TCU, Longhorns took 2 out of 3, but lost that final one on Monday. He is head coach David Pierce every Thursday in this spot. Coach, good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing, Coach? How's the week without a midweek game?
Actually worked out perfect just because we ended up pushing to Monday. It just happened that way. So we played Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and we worked out yesterday. We took our day off on Tuesday, so we traveled today. Actually worked out really well. Give us time to get a good work day in, but also get a little rest. Tuesday was a day that I just said, get out of the building. I didn't want anybody around. I just felt like we had been grinding so hard that part of their prep needs to just sometimes just take 24 hours and get away, and that's what we did Tuesday, and had a great workout yesterday, ready to go to Kansas.
Ready to go to Kansas, and Kansas sitting near the bottom of the Big 12, but as we found out with Oklahoma, got to take every game then be on point, because you need every win you can get here, Coach, at 10-8 for the RPI, obviously, but also for the conference standings. West Virginia is sitting atop the conference right now, and you get them at the end of the season. Your final Big 12 series will be here against the Mountaineers, but you got to make these count here this weekend against the Kansas Jayhawks. What's the mindset of the team and yourself heading into the final month of the regular season?
Well, we consider May as playoff baseball, and so we just look at it as every game we play moving forward is like we're in the postseason, and we're in a good position, not in a great position, but we're in a pretty solid position and control our own destiny. And if we go to KU and play well and we're consistent and have good 2-out at bats and fight with 2 strikes and pound the strike zone and continue to play great defense, then we'll give ourselves a chance to win. And I think that's the message. It starts changing. It starts getting a little bit different. Your numbers mean nothing. Let's just put all that to the side and just focus on winning baseball. And I think our kids do a good job of that, but I don't care what anybody says. Your results start, you start feeling your results, and you want to have a great year, and all those things become a factor. And so we just try to twist that right now and move towards every at-bat. Everything we do is, towards winning the game, which we always are, but just really getting committed to playoff baseball and understanding the implications.
And no more tinkering. It's about winning now with everybody and every pitch. Hey, Coach, the Tanner Witt experience on Monday. You got to start the game as you told us he would last week in this spot, and 23 pitches. He little amped up. It felt like watching him. But how did you take in his 23 pitch effort, and then how was his recovery afterwards, and how are things going into this weekend?
Yeah, he was amped up, and it was a little unfair for him to have to go on a Sunday when we're trying to sweep, or a Monday in this case, when we're trying to sweep, and 50 guns in his face, and a lot of things that pitchers deal with that you think a guy like Tanner can handle, and he can, but he was so amped up. He was missing up arm side, and that's a tell that lets you know that he's running away from his arm. He's kind of in a rush, and so that adrenaline kicked in. So I think it was good that he was able to get out there. It did hurt us, but at the same time, we look at the big picture there, and like I've said before, his teammates are so much behind him that they were willing to deal with it. And I remember taking him out, and a couple of infielders like, Tanner, that was awesome, and I'm like, no, it wasn't really awesome, but it was good to get him back out here. But we're down a run now.
Yeah, well, go ahead, Coach.
It's all right. It's part of it.
But the recovery good, no issues this week, and you plan to be able to get him back on the mound this weekend.
You told me yesterday he felt better the last 2 days than he did in the previous week after his live at bat. So that's a great sign. Certainly
is. Also from the weekend, obviously the weekend previous with Oklahoma, not great, but you went into TCU, took the 2 out of 3. Lucas Gordon did his thing in game 1 on Saturday. Your offense came around, and then on Sunday's game, how about LeBaron Johnson with the 6 innings he gave you? He was dominant. That's the good LBJ that you're going to need now here into the month of May.
No doubt. And he's such a student. He sometimes misses with a little feel, but he's such a listener and tries to understand his adjustments. And he made a really nice adjustment in his delivery, just a small but major, and then really got his hand over the top of the ball and threw down angle fastballs, sliders, and his split came back. And so his timing and his delivery was outstanding. And if he can continue that, he could sit in that Saturday spot for us and be pretty darn good and pretty tough, putting some pressure on some people.
Yeah, with Lucas as consistent as he has been, LBJ on a Saturday. And then what is the plan for Tanner Witt moving forward? Is he going to be a guy out of the bullpen, or how will you work him into what's going on with your pitching staff?
With his prep and how he needs to get ready right now, we'll continue to start him. If it's that 1, maybe going into 2 innings, we're going to continue to start him. Like I said, when we talked about last week, even if I'd have thought he would have had a bad outing, I would have thought maybe a run, but it just didn't turn out like that. But I just see moving forward, if he starts on Sunday, that to continue, and hopefully we can extend his number of pitches, number of innings.
30-16 right now, 10-8 in the Big 12, going to Kansas. What's the scouting report on the Jayhawks?
New staff, a lot of energy, building a new culture. A lot of kids bought in, got some pretty decent transfers. They swung the bat well. Okay defensively, and I think their Friday night starter has gotten deep into games, and so we're going to have to be creative to get after him. And if we can do that, I think we can get in their bullpen. It gives us opportunity. So we just got to go out there and not worry about KU, but much more about us being consistent and having some reliability in our bullpen to be able to compete at the highest level and to be able to, hold leads and make people earn it. And I think there were some pluses even on Monday with some guys. It wasn't pretty, but at times you saw them getting hit or doing something different as opposed to giving up the free pass, and we'll work from there.
Coach, always appreciate it. Always candid and good conversation. The month of May now, as you say, every game's a playoff game from here on out. That starts on Friday night at KU, and, of course, you can hear all the games here on the Horn this weekend. Coach, safe travels, and we look forward to next Thursday.
Okay. Appreciate you guys. Hook 'em horns.
Hook 'em horns. David Pierce. There you go, yeah. Tanner Witt to start again on Sunday, it looks like, and however long he could go, probably an inning, maybe a little bit longer if it goes well in outing number 2. And LeBaron Johnson Jr. likely to start that game on Saturday. And here's the point, Mike. The Longhorns need to take care of business, and Texas fans are going to be in the not good. You got to root for Oklahoma. You got to root for the Sooners this weekend because they're playing at Morgantown against West Virginia. You need Skip Johnson's team to roll into Morgantown and do kind of what they did to you to get the Longhorns back into this mix because the Big 12 Conference right now is a jumbled mess. At the top, and West Virginia's sitting there. West Virginia has 3 more conference series left. The Longhorns only have 2. They have this one and then West Virginia. They're going to play a non-conference series next weekend with San Jose State to get games even, but you need Oklahoma to go in there. So West Virginia has to play home series with Oklahoma, home series with Texas Tech, and then come here to play the Longhorns. So, and, Oklahoma State's in at 11-7, K-State's 11-7 as well. So still a lot of baseball. But Big 12 will come down to the end, and then, of course, it's the Big 12 tournament. There is Coach David Pierce. Great to hear that on Tanner Witt, that he reported no issues after the arm. When he said guns, by the way, he said there are 40 guns in his face. scouts aplenty with the radar guns, right? So if you can vision that, you're standing on the mound and you look into right behind home plate, and there's 40 radar guns staring right back at you. The TCU crowd was into it as well, so you can see a guy and young player coming back from a year plus long injury, amping it up a little bit, getting ahead of himself.
Always root for those guys, and that first start is always kind of like a hold your head in your hands, look through your fingers type of deal to make sure you can get through it. But all good, look good.
Good stuff for him, and if you can get him going as a couple, as we say, 6-9 outs here in the month of May at some point during a weekend series to go with Lucas Gordon and LBJ. Got to keep LBJ going, and you got two dominant starters, and then work behind that for the Longhorns. We'll come back, load up a Mike Craven is here blitz on a Thursday. That could be fun. We'll also get back into the fun conversations of the mornings, the Buck Offs and Buck Ons, greatest fictional bars and restaurants all time in movies, TV shows, and that's always a good one. It's B&E with you. That's right. No games, just the gossip ahead of your blitz. That means it's time to load it up. 447-3776. Bring it strong. Show this morning, we've been talking a lot of little gossipy type of things, including the best all-time fictional bars, restaurants, hangouts. And I think we're to the point where we could probably name our top. So for television sitcom genre, are we going with what is it called?
Bada Bings?
Well, the Bada Bings would be for television full-length feature show. You know what I'm saying? Bada Bing. But television sitcom, is it going to be for the little restaurant they hung out in, Monk's Restaurant there and Cafe for Seinfeld, Central Perk for Friends, or Cheers for Cheers? Probably got to be Cheers.
My vote would be Seinfeld. That's just my favorite show of those three.
Okay.
Same here.
Now,
I'm
Cheers,
Patty's Pub.
like for Cheers, like every scene was in Cheers, pretty much.
Right.
Whereas the restaurant in Seinfeld was occasionally they'd end up in the restaurant, which was good for. Isn't that where the Master of Your Own Domain episode began? Over salads at the cafe, which was awesome. We'll take your nominees. And then movies. Gosh, movies are so many. Did you ever see the Sopranos prequel to the actual show?
I did. I saw that on an airplane.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, it's solid.
Young Tony Soprano. It's one of those things. I told my wife, because she's never really watched The Sopranos, I said, well, you should watch that movie first and then dive into The Sopranos. It'll really give you some deep insight into who Tony Soprano is and where he came from. Good way to do it. Come on, y'all. It's Cheers. I agree. And every time we have this little conversation, whichever hour, some people have mentioned Roper's Regal Beagle.
People do love the Regal Beagle.
I was young. I remember
Is it just the name? Is it just because the name's cool and it rhymes?
Well, it's Mr. Roper, too. Mr. Roper, little guy, ran the bar. You could also remember on the show Love Boat back in the day, they had Isaac the bartender at the bar on the cruise liner. That was always kind of cool.
I'm going to write in Bob's Burgers. Bob's Burgers. That's the restaurant.
Never really got into that show.
Oh, it's a great show. Love that show. Although I watched Archer first, and so the main character's voice is always Archer to me. Same with like the Arby's commercials. It's all the same guy.
Isn't that that's Joe from Family Guy too, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
I believe so.
Somebody said Star Wars Cantina Bar. Yeah, Ty played the Cantina theme music when we came back from a break earlier on this May the 4th Be With You Day. Also from Gossip, it is official. The Kevin Costner divorce from Yellowstone is done. Kevin Costner no longer on Yellowstone. Here's what I was trying to get to earlier, that according to the insiders, the tension between Taylor Sheridan, the creator of Yellowstone, and then Kevin Costner came to Costner's inability to commit to filming the remainder of season 5. He was only willing to shoot for a week for the whole second half of the season, which obviously wasn't going to be enough. I mean, I was thinking, well, just kill him off. Maybe that's what they'll do.
Well, they've tried like 13 times in that show. I don't know if you watched that show, but it's like The Sopranos for cowboys or something.
And it's hokier.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's
absolutely wild.
When Yellowstone became a phenomenon, I loved it, and I always said this was for the scenery, right? Because I worked at a ranch in Wyoming in college, and it looks just like that, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's
so I'm like,
beautiful,
man, I love the scenery, horses. I can relate to the corral, and because working at the ranch, that's very similar. They hit that. Taylor Sheridan did a good job of the scene and the setting and the characters, especially the Cowboys characters, the Rip character. But yeah, it defies belief in a lot of ways.
The spinoffs are good.
Yeah.
You watch like the 1883 and the 1920 whatever, like those are pretty good.
Double Deuce mentioned again. Isaac on the Lido deck. That's exactly right. Thank you very much. But yeah, that's now official. Kevin Costner done. Also the same week he's getting divorced. His wife blindsided him, filing for divorce after 19 years from old Kevin Costner. Not a good week for my man. There you go.
Or a great one.
Or a great one. We also mentioned the Hall of Fame Rock and Roll class of 2023 announced, including the Kate Bush. Kate Bush. And she's got, what's the song that has become famous again because of her that's like on Netflix?
It's in the series Stranger Things.
Yeah. Stranger
which
Things.
I don't watch, but I've
that's
heard the song.
reach. I think Kate Bush, that's a reach. Willie Nelson, though, on the heels of Dolly Parton, they're kind of branching out in the country. And Willie, why not? He's 90. Absolutely. There's Sheryl Crow. I'm a big fan of Sheryl Crow.
Austin Ties.
Austin Ties. And she really changed music for women. When you think about it, when she was coming online in the 90s, there weren't a lot of solo female rock and roll and, singer-songwriter types. And she went to the top of the charts, won some Grammys, and is still going today, now more into the country realm. with her music. The Spinners, George Michael, Missy Elliott, and Rage Against the Machine. And you said earlier Rage is kind of the soundtrack of your youth.
Definitely was a formative band in my life growing up, obviously. It formulated a lot of my opinions on life.
Rage Against the Machine.
One of my favorite things over the last couple of years is people figuring out that Rage Against the Machine was political.
They're just figuring that out now?
Like people, they would tweet something and they'd be like, I'm never going to a Rage Against the Machine concert again. When did y'all get political? It's like, wow, what did y'all think the Machine was? What do you think they were raging against?
Right, what's the name of the band?
Right.
Come on, man. And I will go back to the artists who deserve to be in that aren't. When I see like Missy Elliott going in, nothing against her and her music, but Bad Company's not into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame yet. Foreigner's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Sammy Hagar and Don Henley are not in as solo artists, which I think is crazy.
Iron Maiden, you said earlier.
Iron Maiden, Motley Crue.
Jane's Addiction isn't in the Hall of Fame.
Jane's Addiction. Lenny Kravitz isn't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame yet. What are we doing? Ozzy Osbourne isn't in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it says here. REO Speedwagon, Soundgarden, 38 Special. What are we doing here?
Yeah.
These guys in here. Get these people
Smashing Pumpkins, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
And you're putting in the Kate Bush? Come on now. What are we doing here? I love Willie Nelson. But
it's like in baseball when they get like the elder, like she's like the elder vote in, like the Legend series.
The Legend series. You know who's not in? Boston. Boston, the great band out of Boston who, I always tell you that the guy, the guitar guy, he was going to MIT as an engineer when they started Boston. He's made a fortune in all these wah-wah pedals and all these guitar amplification things that he created. He invented them. And that first Boston album is still as good a rock and roll album as you'll ever listen to.
They need a contributors section like for Mel Kiper.
Yeah, put him in. Well, they can put him in for music too, because Boston was a badass back in. That's still an album that stands up. Their first album, self-titled. All right, let's go to the Blitz. It's time.
The Bucky and E Blitz.
He said, did Kevin Costner meet a barrel racer? No, we don't need to go there and salacious gossip. Those barrel racers look okay in those jeans, though. First Blitzer, you're up.
E.
Yes.
Two things for you. Is it true that Bucky is not there today because he had to get ready for his Star Wars party he was going to have with the family, and he's dressing like Princess Leia?
No, Bucky's not a Star Wars fan. Bucky's not a Star Wars fan. We've learned that over time. All right, buddy. Next Blitzer, you're up.
This is Lorenzo Kraft, certified expert on all things. You people are experts at getting loaded, whereas I, just like Lonnie, am an expert at getting unloaded.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Roberto Kraft. Next Blitzer, you're up.
What about McLaren's Pub from How I Met Your Mother?
The good one? How I Met Your Mother. Next Blitzer, you're up.
Hey, the place to be was the Max at Bayside High. If you don't believe me, ask AC Slater and Zach. I bet you they can tell you some stories about them and Kelly Kapowski.
Kelly Kapowski. Yeah, that was...
First Crush.
Really? What was the name of that show?
Saved by the Bell.
How about the Emporium in Days Confused?
There you go. All right. Isn't that Style Switch?
That's a real... Yeah, it's a real place.
Like that building that the Emporium was shot in is now Style Switch Barbecue next to the Yellow Rose.
Awesome. Next Blitzer, you're up.
Yeah, in case you missed it, and apparently a lot of people did, the Texas Stars beat the Rockford Ice Hogs last night to advance in the series. And undoubtedly the best bar ever is the Female Anatomy Twisties in Dusk Till Dawn.
Oh.
It's a fair point. That's a great point.
Wasn't it like Titty Twisties or whatever?
Yeah, where they all turn into vampires and stuff. That's
Dusk
a great
Till Dawn.
movie.
Yeah. And somebody astutely on our Twitter machine pointed out that E. Hogan Cheers isn't a fictional bar. There's an actual Cheers.
Yep.
That is true. I've been there in Boston.
Yeah, and go Texas Stars. When I lived out in Cedar Park, I'd go to those games all the time at the Cedar Park Center. I don't know what it's called now, and it's great. For Austin FC, I would say that was the best sports ticket in town, just because there's no bad place to see.
Yeah, they rolled right through the Ice Hogs of Rockford.
They need to go back to being the Ice Bats, though.
No. They were never the Ice Bats.
What?
That was a
Texas
different.
They played out at the Expo Center. That was a completely
This
different.
is higher level. This
really?
Is
yeah, this is the AAA team for the.
That
Dallas
was just
Stars.
dudes who like to fight that could also kind of skate a little.
Met some great dudes though doing that.
The Stars are like AAA hockey, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
And I got to hang out with some of those hockey guys sometimes after the games because I did the color commentary.
Oh, okay.
Those hockey players get more ass in a toilet seat. It's unbelievable.
I can't even imagine.
Girls love hockey players. I don't know what that is.
It's tough. They're rugged.
Violence.
Yeah.
The hair.
You're protected.
By the way, it says here, Kate Bush, they're running up that hill from the show that Ty said, Stranger Things. Best-selling solo song by a female artist in the U.S. in 2022. 3 million units sold.
Wow.
I bet she's happy that they chose her song for their show. That's a comeback if there ever was one. We're back. B&E on the Horn. It's our final hour of our program here on the Horn. Of course, we'll hand the baton to Light the Tower at 10 o'clock. Craig and Jeff, Colonel Cameron Parker, and the crew. Chad and Zay through your midday. Harge and Rod this afternoon with Patrick and the Ball Don't Lie program. On a busy Thursday, a lot going on. Good stuff in there. We got a lot in. We got fictional restaurants and bars. We got buck-ons and buck-offs. Good stuff on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Because somebody asked about Ozzy Osbourne because I said he was a guy not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now, Black Sabbath is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he went in as a member of that band, but he's not in for his solo career, which I think he probably should be. Lenny Kravitz. Like Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young are not in. Crosby, Stills, and Nash are. Like they didn't, because Neil Young's in on his own too, right? The Canadian singer-songwriter. So, a lot of names that you would expect would be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that aren't. But there you go. There's some music on the, and it's really getting more amplified when you're starting to put in people like Willie Nelson and Missy Elliott, which, I like that they're branching out and they're diversifying some of the music tastes and redefining what rock and roll is. But let's get all the good rock and roll people in first before you start doing that, right? Or at least along the way. Mike,
I love all the bands that sound like law firms. The Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, this Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Well, those are all supergroups, right?
Right, but they sound like the lawyer you would need when you got hit by a Mack truck.
Yeah, I mean Crosby, David Crosby and Stephen Stills, Graham Nash, and form a band, and then they had Neil Young. I mean, it's supergroup, right? Back in the day, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, another one. Happens, which is good. But and I can see them, a lot. I mean, David Crosby's in as a solo artist and the performer that he was. But so we'll take your thoughts on some of that conversation. In addition to football and basketball and the NBA, but so you like the Warriors big tonight? Is that right?
I do. I don't know what the line is. I hadn't looked at the line.
I know.
6.
Thank you. I would take the Warriors in the 6. It just feels like the Lakers. They wanted to split. They got their one. They'll take their foot off the gas a little bit. Golden State will play with more urgency, and Golden State will win by 10 or 15.
Feels like it. That's what we saw last night. And again, there's a human nature side to it both ways. That Philadelphia, once they got down, I don't think they were going to wear themselves out trying to get back in that game because we've already got our game in Boston, and now we're going back home. And if we can defend our home court and save our energy for those games, we can still get back in control of this series. That's all you're looking to do in a 7-game series as the road team and split those first 2, which we've seen Miami do, which we saw Boston or Philadelphia do, and now the Lakers have done it. Phoenix was unable to do so. And
Phoenix is cooked.
Phoenix feels cooked at this point. The Chris Paul injury, Monty Williams, their head coach, is having to figure out the defensive end and what to do with Nikola Jokic at this point. They don't have much of an answer. They tried to double him a lot, and it was Jamal Murray that killed them in the first game, and then then Jokic just killed them because they were trying to focus on Jamal Murray in game 2. They don't, and then on offense, if Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are going to miss that many shots like they did in game 2, be careful. But again, a 7-game series doesn't become a series until a road team wins a game. If Phoenix goes home and defends their home court in the desert, goes 2-2, all of a sudden we're down to a 3-game series. So if Denver goes in and splits in Phoenix, you pretty much can cook them at this point. But we'll see. That's not tonight, though. Only tonight are the Lakers and the Warriors. What do you think you're getting tonight in that one there, T.Y.? You feeling good about the Warriors side of that thing?
Yeah, definitely. I think they bounce back big. Similar to last night.
I'm glad this tipping at 8 o'clock because I can probably stay up for this one and not fall asleep. When it starts at 9 or 9:30, man, I can try for a half, but then it's going to be Katie bar the door. But this one I can make it an 8 o'clock tip in a standalone game. I just hope we have a real good game. I think, and I know the TV network wants that too because the ratings should be off the charts here. If you're looking at the ratings so far through the first round, to have Steph and LeBron head to head, add the piece of Anthony Davis the way he played the other night. A lot of star power in that basketball game and that whole series, which would be a lot of fun. Can I say again on a buck off Thursday, buck off to Charles Barkley. Charles will do pretty much anything. It's maybe the greatest, pregame halftime show that's ever been created. That
NBA on
TNT.
Yeah, it's great.
It is so funny. Your belly laughs every time because Shaq will say something dumb. Or you see Shaq rip the fart the other night? What was up with that?
Yeah, I mean,
he blamed it on what did he say? He had some. He ate something.
They're always eating good there.
I mean, he's like 7'3", 300 and something pounds. I mean, he's got a lot of stuff in there. Sometimes
his farts are going to sound louder than yours, I promise you. But so last night, I don't know if they dared him to do this or what. I saw the video. He cleaned his phone by licking it. Like his phone. What's more filthy than your phone?
Nothing. I mean, honestly, like toilet seats are cleaner than that.
It's in your hands all the time. Then it's put in your pocket. Then you set it on a table, and then you put it here and you put it there. And I try to clean my phone every day or two, right? Just wipe it down and keep it clean. But you can't lick the thing.
No, you can't. You can't lick.
You can't lick the thing. Ty, have you ever licked your phone? I learn something new about you every day, every show. Like I learned today that you make more money gambling than you do working for the Horn. So
sometimes, most weeks.
Most weeks.
I mean, maybe you get a little ranch on your phone or something, eating some wings. You don't want to smear it with a napkin. You might lick it. I'm not the most sanitary guy.
Can't put your tongue on it. I'm not. Rod Babers. You see all these handy wipes that are around here. Rod Babers is still like the most sanitary person. He cleans everything. He wipes everything down before and it's just his way. I mean,
you just combined a lot of things. Rod Babers wouldn't like the ranch as well, right? He doesn't eat white food.
White condiments.
Yeah.
I'm ranch. If I didn't have ranch in my life, I don't know what I would do.
Really?
The Pluckers Ranch.
The Pluckers Ranch is a different level of ranch.
As if you listen to the show regularly, I like the cheesesteak from Pluckers.
Mm-hmm.
I recently discovered if you dip that in a little bit of ranch, you get the 6-ounce ranch cup from Pluckers.
Yep.
Oh my God.
I mean, I'm
Game
very
changer.
Texan. I am not a huge ranch guy, but Pluckers Ranch should be bottled and sold at a lot of places.
There's certain places where I don't like Hidden Valley. But I used to work at Austin's Pizza, and one of my duties there was
make the ranch.
I was the ranch man,
Okay.
and that ranch, I'll tell you what,
Bob.
Good.
game changer.
Did you put it in the big barrel there and mix it up?
You use a little heavy mayonnaise.
Yeah,
it's all it is heavy mayonnaise, buttermilk, and ranch fat.
Y'all ever run into? Y'all know any blue cheese people?
I hate blue cheese.
Wags,
I don't either.
Wags.
Wags is a blue cheese
it's
guy.
an East
He's
Coast.
he's from the East Coast, though.
Yeah.
Huh?
I think blue cheese crumbles will make me sick if I see them. It's like, ugh. They put on a salad. No, but I'm a ranch guy. You know what's good in ranch is really good French fries. Like it's really good French fries.
Yeah.
Really not much that isn't good with some good ranch.
It's over your cell phone.
But you still can't lick your cell phone. Still can't do that. That's not going to be okay. Just saying. Sorry, Charles, but that is a buck off. That is a buck off. Also, is it a buck on? Because here's what we do, Mike, and you're new to the Buck Off Thursday thing, at least being a part of the show. We do buck offs and buck ons. Get it off your chest. Hammer somebody who needs it, all right? But I'll say buck on to the Cowboys for drafting Deuce Vaughn. I thought that was a really, really cool moment. I don't think they did it just because that Chris is, in the scouting department, his father, but that was a cool scene, man. That was good television over the weekend. But then I'll ask you, Lionel Messi discussing a $400 million per year deal with the Saudis. Is that buck offable, or is that just the way we're going here?
And it's a buck off for me. I'm a huge international soccer fan. As a sports writer, I have the privilege to be able to sit around and watch those 2:00 games. Like that's why I got into international soccer on the European level. Is I didn't have a regular office job, so 2:00 on a Wednesday you can watch some of the best soccer in the world. The Saudi league is not there yet. They don't play in the Champions League. They don't. You don't see them really on TV and stuff. It's a lot like Live Golf in that way, where it's kind of like this outlaw league. That has some big names in it, but isn't sanctioned. You don't get to see it as much. So, when you take away the best player of all time, in my opinion, Messi is the best soccer player of all time, and you go put him in Saudi Arabia, it's like if Michael Jordan at the end of his career was playing in Japan or something, you just never got to see him, right? So I was hoping as his career came into the twilight that he'd go to the MLS and maybe somebody
I've been talking about Miami.
Yeah, would give him a bunch of money and maybe like 25% of the team or something, and that'd be an option. But yeah, going to Saudi, that stinks. I'm going to give that a buck off.
Yeah, and again, it gets political and Saudis and this and that and where the money's coming from. I think we've been through that over and over again with the Live Golf Tour.
It's just about not being able to see him.
Right, and exactly the selfishness of it. But can you blame Lionel Messi for being selfish, saying, "Look, I'm 35 years old. This is probably my last contract." And I know people will say, "Well, he's already made a ton of money," which is true. But at the same time, if someone wants to pay you $400 million to play a year of soccer, and by the way, that would be an annual payment.
Yes.
So if you can play 2 more years of soccer and make $800 million, who among us could turn that down? I understood that with the Live Golf Tour guys that took the money and went, Dustin Johnson and Phil Mickelson and Brooks Koepka and those guys. At the same time, I didn't agree with it. I wish they would stay with the PGA Tour and grow the game. But at the same time, you understand an individual taking that money. Buck on recently, Harold Varner III, as Bucky calls him, Harold Varner the Thursday, which I always thought was a great nickname. Good on Thursday. But Harold, he came out really strong again and basically said what we all know. Look, this was for money.
Yeah.
I took it for money. And he kind of excoriated some of his other live golfers for trying to couch it in other things. Like, oh, come on. I mean, we know what we're doing here. We're not growing the game of golf by doing this. We're cashing in. If we really wanted to grow the game, there are a lot of other ways we go about it. But I appreciated his honesty, because that's I don't know that I've heard someone as honest as Harold was. Here's his quote. He said, "They're full of blank." He said, of course, the league is funded by the Saudi Public Investment Fund and oil money. He says, talking to the Washington Post and dismissing with colorful language the other live pros' pronounced reasons for joining the new tour. He says, they're full of S. He says, hold on, now I got an advertisement popping up so I can't read the story. Oh, man. How about all these clicks? He says, they're full of blank. They're growing their pockets. I tell them all the time, all of them, you didn't come here to grow the blanking game. You came here to grow your pockets. Yeah. Just say it. And thank you, Harold. Appreciate that. But again, good for them. Go do it. But for Lionel Messi, and the Live Tour offered Tiger Woods $800 million to join their tour, and Tiger said no. And Tiger's a billionaire, so no one's, you understand that. But Lionel Messi's the golden toe, man. This is the greatest it's ever been.
Because two things can be true at one time. Like, I can also know that if I was if I was Dustin Johnson, I would have done the same thing. If I was Lionel Messi, I would have done the same thing. It also stinks. Like, those two things can be true at the same time. Like, yeah, if it was offered to me, I'm not turning down that money. But as a fan and somebody who's not turning down that money, I would prefer if all the best players stayed in the same league, because that makes the league better and more enjoyable to watch.
And in the arguments and debates I got with our audience all the time was I'm in support of because I always have to point out, everybody had the choice. Mm-hmm. Every player had money on the table. Jordan Spieth, Scotty Scheffler, every one of these dudes had a choice to make and could still make it. And I respect the guys that stuck with it, and they're forcing change on the PGA Tour, which is a good thing to heighten the purses and the things that they're doing. Every player had a choice to make. The only ones that I really criticize are the ones that are still in the prime of their career. Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau. I mean, they need to stay in this. I mean, Phil Mickelson's 50 years old. I have no problem.
Yeah.
Dustin Johnson, pushing up to 40. I kind of get it. He's had some injury issues. But, man, if you're in the prime and you want to – and we just saw Brooks Koepka do it head-to-head at the Masters with the best players in the world. I just wish they would stay and compete for the championships. But, again, I get the money.
I'm glad Bryson DeChambeau's gone. Get him as far away as possible.
He won a U.S. Open. I mean,
he's just such a tool.
He is SMU guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So, Mike, while you're with us, this is our last few segments here on a Friday or on a Thursday. Friday, tomorrow, I will be at the Hyatt Lost Pines Resort, Lost Pines Club for the Mullet Open. I'll be broadcasting live at 6 a.m. And Ty, you were asking me, is it worth your time to come out tomorrow after the show?
Yes.
Here's what I would say.
What would I be doing if I'm not playing golf?
Nothing. I could probably maybe get you into the lazy river. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Float around the lazy river.
Get one of those bikes they got laying around there and just ride around.
Get a drink with a umbrella.
I did tell the guy I met in Fort Worth on the streets this weekend that I would try to find him. So
now there is a 70% chance of rain today and tomorrow.
What time? Oh,
that's what I got to look at. I mean, there's rain in the forecast every day.
Yeah, I don't think it's a ton of rain.
Is it thunderstorm rain?
No, I think it's one of those 0.25 inches expected type situations.
She was hoping for never mind. Let's but so for you, Ty, since you are going to be producing this show until 10 o'clock, and it would take you a good 40 minutes to get out there, 30 minutes once you wrap up, might be 11 o'clock before you get to, it's only a 20, 25-minute trip past the airport there. But by the time you got out there, everybody's going to be teeing off. The thing tees off at 11. So I'll get off the air. Everybody will load up in their carts, and we'll take off. So for you, what I would do is come out in the evening and have dinner. Just come out like at 4 o'clock. If it tees off at 11, we'll be done by 4:30, between 4 and 5, and you can feast on the Louis Miller barbecue from Taylor, Texas. My man Wayne Miller and his team.
That's a good plan.
That's a good plan. So just come out and eat dinner. Win a prize. That's where you'll see everybody. Because if you come out there, it's going to be empty. Jancy will be there.
Can I get in the raffle still?
Yeah.
Okay. Worth it. I got to be there to support Bucky. It's my first year.
You got to be
being a part of the show.
Well, and I know our former producer, now star on the radio in Houston, Brad Kellner's coming back for that. There'll be all kinds of. I mean, it's almost like a reunion, Mike. We've been so many people who are playing this week have played in every one of them.
Yeah.
And so
I'm very jealous of all of this conversation.
You are?
Yeah.
You can come out.
Yeah.
Come on. You
Well,
live
I'm
out
like
by the
Ty.
airport.
I'm like Ty. If I don't get to play golf, like,
I'm
what
playing
gonna
next
do?
year.
Yeah.
I already told Bucky.
I'm gonna get on that Thursday one or whatever.
Yeah.
The mini mullet.
The mini mullet. I think that's my more range there.
Not as many people, not as
Yeah.
crowded, a little shorter tournament.
Yeah, less
I'm kinda
sharks.
like you.
I'd be kind of scared to go to the real mullet open and just get taken, hustled.
So here's Craig Flowers is texting say 100% Ty, you should be going to the Mullet Open event. You'll be there. But yeah, he was asking my advice. Don't come out at noon. There's going to be everybody's be on the golf course unless you want to drive around and see everybody. The whole tournament will be out, and then dinner 4:30, 5 o'clock. Be there. Raffle. You could win a big TV. I mean, people win big things there. I won a smoker grill one time, and I didn't have where to put it. I ended up trading it. Because I was about to move, and I was like, man, I don't need to move this thing all over the place. Yeah, Bucky has the best prizes of any golf tournament you'll ever play in. It's unbelievable. And then the food is killer, so looking forward to that. But that'll be tomorrow. Today is the Mini Mullet Open, and I should mention our friend Travis Tyndall, Hayes City Store and Ice House, and the new great restaurant in downtown Buda called The Taste on Main. They have a great spot there now. By the way, the outdoor patio at the Taste on Main now open. What a great spot to hang out under the oak trees. So check them out. But they'll be out there tonight making those hamburgers after the round of the Mini Mullet Open. Mike, the college football conversations have been plentiful and tremendous this morning and yesterday with your insights on these Big 12 teams and the teams in the state of Texas. We've gone through TCU, who you think have a lot of rebuilding to do, but think they'll be pretty good. Just a little bit of a step back. Not 12 wins, maybe 8, 9 kind of thing?
Yeah, I think the magazine, I'll probably have the over and under set at 8.
Set at 8? Okay.
Yep.
And then we talked Houston Cougars. You have a hard time finding them with 6 or more wins.
Yeah, if they get to 6-6, I actually think that's a pretty good year. That's how tough of a task they have, not only moving into the Big 12, but just what their roster is. It is not prepared for what's about to happen.
And that was the design when Tillman Fertitta, I know he's not the AD, but
yeah, he is.
He runs the program.
Yeah.
When they hired Dana Holgerson away from West Virginia, that was the idea, right? Eventually we're going to get ourselves into the Big 12. It's worked out. When we hit the Big 12, Dana, we need to be ready to go. Now,
and it looked like it was going to be. Like in 2021, they won 12 games. They beat Auburn in a bowl game. They had won 11 in a row. The only loss they had in the regular season was to Cincinnati that went to the college football playoff. And so they went into last year with so many high hopes. It underachieved, and then they had a decent amount of losses to the transfer portal. It just doesn't feel like the excitement's there right now.
And that's weird. What happened? I mean, is it Dana? Is it bad luck? I mean, transfer portal?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of stuff. I do think, Holgerson can be a harder guy to play for maybe in this era, this generation of players. He doesn't do there's the tough love, right? And you need the love part of the tough love to work. I think he has an easier time doing the tough than the love part, and then maybe that doesn't, work these days as well as it used to. But also, Houston just does not have the money to keep some of these star players around. And if you don't have the culture, you don't have the locker room. And if you're not winning a bunch of games, what's there to stay for? And so I think you had a lot of guys on the team that looked around and go, okay, we've been all conference players. We can go cash in, get some NIL money. Because that, like we all know in the real life, right? Like your time to get more money is in between jobs, not at the job. And so I think it's one of those leverage deals, and Houston just hasn't had the infrastructure put in place yet to keep those guys around.
Yeah, that is an interesting thought because Houston been clamoring to get here, and they might get beat up pretty good when they do, going week by week against the Big 12.
It's a tough schedule.
It is for them, including the Longhorns, October 21st down in Houston. Also, Texas Tech. I want to get to them coming up with Joey McGuire and why they're so excited. But we also talked about Rice, who should be good for Rice. I mean, is this going to be the best Mike Bloomgren team with JT Daniels at quarterback?
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. They hadn't had a winning record or at least gone 500 since, I think, 2014 off the top of my head. And this is their best roster since those David Bailiff teams, for sure.
And Dave Aranda at Baylor we discussed as well. And they're trying to bounce back. Won the Big 12 last year, 6-7. Remember that bowl game they played in up there in Dallas when it was like no degrees? It was so cold and windy, and you could tell Baylor had no interest in being in the
playing
game.
Against an option team in 20-degree
like
weather.
Air Force or whatever.
Yeah.
And in 2-degree weather
in
with
their
the wind
rival
chill.
stadium. They're in TCU Stadium. That's like Texas going to a bowl game in College Station and playing against Army in the snow or something.
No thanks.
No thank you.
But Baylor's ready for a reboot, and you say Dave Aranda, who didn't embrace the transfer portal early has now had to and to restock the roster.
Yeah, brought in a lot of new faces, a couple new offensive linemen from BYU, a running back from Oklahoma State, a wide receiver from Arkansas. Got some new linebackers. One from Liberty, Mike Smith. It's going to be their starting Mike linebacker off the top. So definitely one of the things I like about Aranda is he's willing to kind of look at himself, self-reflect, and then say, I didn't do this very well. I'm going to do it differently this next year. A lot of coaches kind of get tied into what they're doing. Their ego won't allow them to admit mistakes out loud, but he's been very candid. That first year he tried to be too much like Matt Rule because it was his first year being a head coach. He wasn't sure exactly how to act, figured it out in year 2, didn't embrace the portal in the way he should have going into year 3, and he's fixing that going into year 4.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, offense takes a lot of heat in Waco, but the defense was the problem
defense has
last
to be
year.
better.
The defense, which was so good.
Because they're not going to win games 45-35. Like, that's not what Baylor and Dave Aranda want to do. They want to win games, 25-20 and stuff. And they did that in 2021. They did not do that at all last year.
Well, you got to think the game like we saw here in Austin last November was a part of why they fired the defensive coordinator. Texas essentially stopped throwing the ball and just pounded the rock at him with Bijan and Roschon and won the game. You could tell Quinn Ewers was struggling. The offensive line was struggling. And then they couldn't stop the run. I mean, that'll grind a defensive guy's gears big time.
Yes.
Guys, we made them one-dimensional and we couldn't stop the dimension, or we might have won the game. That's that. And what's the change at defense? Who's running the D now?
They brought in Matt Pallage from Oregon. He had been at Baylor as an assistant coach for a couple years there at the end of Rule's era and at the beginning of Aranda. So a familiar face. Younger guy, Ron Roberts, a little bit older, I think. Pallage brings in his own ideas, and him and Aranda kind of mix some stuff up and find some interesting ways to get better in that front seven.
All right, we'll come back and get you the latest. It's B&E on a Buck Off Thursday with Mike Craven, giving some great stuff right there, talking to you, taking your favorite all-time fictional bars and restaurants from your movies and TV shows. Also, Buck-Ons and Buck-Offs. It's May the 4th be with you day as well. Coming back on B&E.
Making your way in the world today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot.
It's Bucky and Erin.
Wouldn't you like to get away? All those nights when you've got
All right, this
no
is
lights,
is this a remake or is this the actual theme to the TV show Cheers?
This is it. I'm pretty sure, right?
This is the full version, I guess. You know, I can tell you something about this show, this song. This was my senior class song as voted by the senior class of Cypress Creek High School 1991.
Oh, wow. Cypress Creek, huh?
Yeah. As voted by the very large senior class. We were over capacity, but in a very large graduating class as a senior. But yeah, this was the vote. Cheers. The theme song as our class song.
I've entered my late 30s, and I read somewhere that Norm was supposed to be like 34 or something like that in Cheers, and like really aged me. Like it hurt my heart, you know? Be like, oh man, I'm older. And same with like Homer Simpson. I think Homer Simpson is supposed to be like 34 or 35 in The Simpsons. It's like, oh, now I'm older than Homer.
They go to Moe's Tavern is where they hang out in Simpsons. But yes, Cheers, a very, very good one. A lot of folks have mentioned the Regal Beagle from Three's Company, which is a very popular show. I think my first recollection as a kid of like a cool bar establishment would have been when watching their restaurant, would have been watching the Dukes of Hazzard and the Boar's Nest. You're not a frequent watcher of the Dukes of Hazzard, I'm assuming.
No.
But yeah, the Boar's Nest, because the Boar's Nest is where Daisy Duke worked. Because Bo and Luke were running around causing trouble. Daisy, she was a reputable lady. She ran the Boar's Nest.
See, to me, Daisy Duke is Jessica Simpson.
No.
Yes.
Yes. Catherine Bach.
Yeah.
No, the original. You know what? Jessica Simpson was pretty, but the original Daisy Duke had legs for days, my friends.
What is Jessica Simpson doing these days?
Counting money. Counting money.
Haven't heard about her in a few years.
That's probably not a question you want answered, maybe.
No, she's married to a former NFL player, and she's counting her money. Like,
just chilling.
Well, because she started a jewelry, like shoe brand, like a line of clothes, and she's a billionaire. I mean, she's made a fortune. If you know, we saw Jessica Alba at the Knicks game the other night, and that went all viral. She started her own company. She's made $1 billion.
From thinking tuna fish was chicken to a billionaire.
Hunter Dickinson has decided where he will be playing college basketball next year.
Hold on one second.
Yeah.
But I got to forget these. Jessica Simpson. Yeah, she started she sells like jewelry and clothes and shoes and stuff now. She's got a brand. But whatever. So that's what she's doing now. Well, okay, breaking news, Ty. What do we have?
Hunter Dickinson, formerly of the Michigan Wolverines.
Hunter Dickinson, formerly of the Michigan. This is a transfer portal player. Is going to play where?
He will be playing at the University of Kansas next year.
Oh no. They also have Arterio Morris rolling in there too. Correct?
Yeah, and Hunter Dickinson, he was one of the top remaining guys in the transfer portal. Obviously, a big 7-footer. Kind of expanded his game last year, being able to hit some threes. So that's a big piece for Kansas.
Yep, Kansas is the favorite, unquestionably.
Well,
at this
aren't
point.
they always in the Big
Houston.
12?
No, I mean in the country.
Houston too.
Houston's up there as well.
Big 12 basketball next year is gonna be fun.
Yeah, and Rodney's got to get this. RT's got to get this. Speaking of Rodney Terry, by the way, we're going to be able to hopefully talk to Rodney on Monday. Tomorrow is the Mullet Open. Today's the Mini Mullet Open. Monday, we're going to be doing the show live at the University of Texas Golf Club, UT Club, for the coaches, Austin's chapter of the Coaches versus Cancer Golf Classic. It's put on by the American Cancer Society. Rodney Terry will be out there. Ty Harrington, who had his battle with cancer, he will be out there with us. So hopefully talk to Rodney as they're still trying to build that roster. Because, look, I mean, it's not just building a roster. If you're Rodney Terry, you're trying to build a roster that can compete in the Big 12, which means if you can compete in the Big 12, you can compete nationally. Yep. you're playing Houston and Kansas and Baylor. I mean, these are all teams that want to win a national championship, and that's big news. So tell me, Hunter Dickinson? Is that right? Or did you say Dickerson?
Dickinson, right? Unless I'm getting that wrong.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm looking at Jessica Simpson.
Hunter Dickinson, yep. He was the number one transfer portal prospect, actually. So top dogs off the board.
So Jessica Simpson owns a company called Sequential Brands Group. Sequential Brands Group. It's created in 2005. The Jessica Simpson Collection. And yeah.
So she's a billionaire?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Does well.
So that's why she's not in movies anymore, huh?
Why would you make movies? I mean, and didn't she married the former NFL tight end? and they got kids and the whole bit.
Good for her. That's awesome.
Good for her.
Yeah, I love when, it's nice when like really, really rich people just like have their money and just go away and you never hear from them again.
And then
That's
Jessica,
what I would do.
And we told you yesterday, I came in and Jessica Alba was trending on Twitter, and I was like, "What's that about?" It was only because she was sitting courtside at the Knicks game, and a little clip of her went viral because there's Jessica Alba, still really pretty, and apparently was sitting right down a couple seats from Aaron Rodgers and Sauce Gardner, the New York Jets quarterback. And Sauce Gardner had to admit he didn't know who she was. He didn't know who Jessica Alba is.
You think that's weird for Aaron Rodgers to like be hanging out with guys who are like 20 years younger than him? As
well, he's
teammates?
going through his college acid stage, so I think it makes exact sense. Like most of us went through the stage Aaron Rodgers is going through when we were like 20, when we were like kind of college know-it-all hippies,
Yeah.
And Aaron has now decided to do that in his late 30s, which makes it super weird.
Well, you have to take a page out of Tom Brady's book. Like when you move to a new team when you're 40 years old, you're going to be dealing with a lot of 20-year-olds and 24-year-olds, and that's what he's trying to do. I'll give Aaron Rodgers this credit. He's specifically staying in New York. He wants to be there all off season to get to know his team and get to know his teammates and kind of bond. And they've been raving about so far what kind of teammate he's been, but we'll see. It'll only show up on the field. Will it have anywhere close to the success Tom Brady did when he moved to Tampa Bay and won a Super Bowl?
We'll see how all these guys like him when he starts screaming at them after week 1 when they lose.
That's right. Well, Tom Brady would scream at people too. Let's not get that twisted.
What's a big difference going from Zach Wilson and Mike White to a guy?
Well, and that's part of what he's told the team. Like I want to be here to make sure everybody understands the bar we want to get this thing to, and Zach Wilson can learn from that, I think. Jessica Alba's company, by the way, the Honest Company. She was like diapers and kids stuff, baby stuff, and she's made another one, like millions and millions and millions of dollars. So good for them. I like when people get rich.
Yeah,
with good ventures.
Yeah. Pay your taxes.
What does Jessica Alba have a high water mark as a actress? Is there a high water point of her career?
Can't tell you one movie she was in. I know I've seen movies that she's in, but nothing memorable.
Yeah, I think I'm with Ty there.
I
don't know how much of a movie. Now that we've had this like restaurant and bars on TV and movie conversation today, I realize I don't watch as much television as I should. I didn't know half of them.
Really?
Probably a good thing.
Yeah. Jessica Simpson's net worth is $260 million. I guess I said billionaire. Billion's a lot, but she does well.
Yeah, that's a lot of money still.
They're rolling in dough, and she doesn't have to make movies. And she was not the original Daisy Duke, or she's not the Daisy Duke you have to think of, Ty. You gotta look up the original Daisy, brown-haired.
Sin City.
She was in Fantastic Four. That Jessica Alba's been in. She was in Machete as well.
That's where I remember from is Machete. Who's the main actor in that? The Hispanic dude that is Machete.
Yeah.
What's his name?
He's basically just Machete.
Yeah,
he's just like play yourself.
Yeah.
God, I'm looking at Jessica Alba's She's made a lot of movies. Now, I would say if you want to see her at her best, she's in a movie called Into the Blue, where she's in that. Who's that other hunky heartthrob guy Paul Walker? Paul Walker, remember him? He was killed in the car accident.
Yeah.
This whole movie is they're scuba divers and they're hunting for treasure. So the entire movie, essentially, Jessica Alba, and if you're a female, Paul Walker in a bathing suit.
Yeah.
Like the whole movie. And a lot of great underwater scenes with Jessica Alba swimming around, if I remember. Yeah, and it's her at the top of her game. Now she's a business lady and doing great, which we appreciate on that front.
Danny Trejo.
Danny Trejo is the Machete. Hey, Ty. Hey, Craven, the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Let's wrap up our conversations. It's taken in and around all of the other conversations, which is a lot of fun on a Buck Off Thursday, the Big 12. And we've been talking specifically about the Longhorns and then the teams the Longhorns play that you've seen and have talked to the coaches. And obviously, we'll finish with the team that I know maybe the most excited about the 2023 season. Baylor's got work to do. TCU's got rebuilding to do. Houston in a tough spot. Rice. But Texas Tech, really, really confident with Joey McGuire, someone who you covered even when he was a high school coach.
Yeah, I think the last time I saw Texas Tech's about plus 700 to win the Big 12. That feels like a pretty solid little flyer. I mean, they have two quarterbacks with NFL potential. Tyler Shuck has broken his collarbone the last 2 years, but if he can stay healthy, that's a kid that transferred from Oregon with a lot of NFL hype. The scouts love him. They came to Lubbock just to watch him throw to some wide receiver eligible players at the pro day last year. So if he could stay healthy, he's 4-0 as a starter last year for Texas Tech, and then Baron Morton behind him, a former 4-star guy that they were lucky to keep in Lubbock. And then you look around that, the offense line's going to get better. All those guys are back. They got Randy Statz coming in to play center from Western Kentucky. That should solidify the middle. Zach Kitley's the offensive coordinator, and they're going to score points, right? It's like when we were talking about Sonny Dykes earlier. Zach Kitley's been an offensive coordinator, I think, for 7 years now, and he's put in a top 20 offense every single time. So they're going to figure out a way to score points. And then quietly, Texas Tech is shucking that stigma of being only an offensive team. Tim DeRuyter came in there. The first pick of the Big 12 was not Bijan Robinson. It was Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech, the edge rusher. They have Miles Cole back on the edge to kind of replace some of that production. And then they have the 2 best interior defensive linemen in the Big 12. I think Texas and Texas Tech have an argument for that best interior line. But Tony Bradford, Jalen Hutchins were both all-conference guys last year that are really good, that are super seniors, that are back. And if you have that to start your defense up front that can handle that physicality, that can free up your linebackers, you can figure out the rest out. So they're going to have to figure out some pass rush, get better along the offensive line. But Texas Tech's going to be one of those teams you absolutely do not want to play.
And in the state of Texas, maybe the primary threat to Texas, if Baylor is still kind of trying to work their way back, and Houston is where they are. Obviously, K-State and Oklahoma will also be threats to Texas in the Big 12, but you didn't go to their spring games or spring practices this spring. But there's a lot to like. And I know we talked to Chris Level right out of their spring game out in Lubbock, and Chris is tremendous. He does the sidelines, and he publisher of Red Raider Sports, and just really. But he said a lot what you said. There's still issues. It's still Texas Tech, but Joey McGuire has them believing after beating Oklahoma and Texas in the same year and winning a bowl game. They haven't done that in a long time. And they're an old team. I mean, their average age is 22, 23 years old. Quarterback is 23 years old. And if he gets hurt, Baron Morton is ready to step in. We saw that. I don't want to say they're as talented as TCU last year, but they've got age like TCU did, which that can win you ball games if you don't turn the football over. You're careful. You got a coach like Joe McGuire who's going to get them ready to play every week. That becomes a challenge. I think the Longhorns are fortunate that they get to play them here, right? It's the last game of the year. It's in Austin. I think there's a lot of folks that think that game could mean a lot to the Big 12 and who plays the following weekend.
We got to remember, this is a Texas Tech program that had not finished 500 or better in the Big 12 since 2009. That was when Mike Leach was there. I mean, it had been a long, long time. And Joey McGuire comes in, takes over a program that had been 500 the years before under Matt Wells, not a fantastically recruited program, and goes in there and wins 8 games and beats Oklahoma and beats Texas at home in the same year for the first time in program history. Every time I open up my email, there's some new building project going on with Lubbock football where they're redoing this side of the stadium, redoing the locker room, redoing this, announcing an NIL collective that. And so, momentum is strong out there. And we have to remember, Texas is going to leave the Big 12. So Texas and Oklahoma, I don't believe are part of this conversation. But if we're looking at the new Big 12, especially if we look in the state and you take Tech, TCU, Baylor, and Houston, I could make an easy argument that Tech is best positioned to be a Big 12 power moving forward just because of how many students they have. TCU doesn't even have 100,000 living alum. Baylor's not much more than that. Texas Tech is over 400,000. They got 40,000 students at all time in Lubbock. And so with NIL becoming bigger and bigger, that's a reason that they've been able to have the collective and have that 25,000 for every single person on the team, for the basketball team, for the softball team and all that. West Texas is big, and when they're excited, like when Mike Leach had them there, you ask any of those guys like Babers and stuff, like AT&T Jones is one of the harder places to play at night when that place is rocking, and McGuire has them figuring that back out.
What is it that Joey McGuire is all about? I mean, obviously he was such a great coach at Cedar Hill. He was on Matt Rule's staff at Baylor and helped him transition to the state of Texas. What separates Joey McGuire?
I think Joey McGuire is as close to Mac Brown as I've ever come across since I've been a kid. And the feel like Mac Brown would make everybody in the building, from the custodian to the doctor's child to his fifth best center on the roster, feel like he was in a very important person. He'd remember their person's name, their mom, where they came from, some issues that were going on. He was just that way. He was just an incredible people person that made people feel better when they left the room, when they entered it. McGuire's the same way, and I think that goes back to his high school coaching roots. Always had to do a little bit less with more, always had to be a community leader, kind of a face of a program in a way that college programs maybe not, out in the community and stuff. And he's a chameleon. He's one of those. He's not from West Texas. But I bet if you polled 80% of Tech fans, they think he was from
Muleshoe
or something like that, right? Like, oh, he must be from down the road. But he's a DFW guy, and he just does a really great job of ingratiating himself into everybody and just an enjoyable dude. And I think it's one of the reasons that all the media guys like him too is, he makes us all feel, he gives us time and he gives us interviews and all that kind of stuff. And that goes a long way. They're humans too.
Yeah, interesting. Closest to
Sometimes.
Mac Brown with Joey McGuire. All right, yeah, and remember, everything goes through Lubbock. That's what Joey said last year. It all comes through Lubbock. But
Yeah.
Steve
That's what you
Sarkisian
gotta
would say.
say.
Steve Sarkisian would say it comes through Austin this
We'll
year
see.
because that's where that game is at the end of the year. Longhorns, of course, open Big 12 play at Baylor, at Waco. They'll play Houston middle of the year. They play Rice on September 2nd to start the season. Texas Tech to wrap up the season. Good stuff with Mike Craven, Dave Campbell's Texas Football, and, of course, our new podcast, multicast we call it because it's on YouTube and you can watch it. Got 2 cameras going and cranking out great video and content. We do that every week. Now we're on hiatus in May, but we're going to bring that back starting right after Memorial Day, just like the Longhorns. So look for it every week on YouTube at Dave Campbell's Texas Football and at the Horn, and can listen to it, iTunes and Spotify. It's good stuff. Myself and Mike breaking down the Longhorns in the Big 12. Coming back, B&E on the Horn.
It's Bucky and Erin.
And this is what we used to do back in the 70s. That's the theme to Three's Company there, Mike Craven. That's where Mr. Roper was the landlord, and it was the Regal Beagle, baby. The Regal Beagle. That's where they hung out. And our fictional bars and restaurants conversation this morning, that's a high one. I think the Bada Bing Sopranos going to win for TV dramatic series. I think we're going to Moe's Tavern for The Simpsons or Cheers. Cheers may be eliminated because it's actually not a fictional bar. It's an actual bar. But it was the scene of the show, Cheers. Ty has voted for Patty's It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Patty's Pub.
Patty's Pub.
But that's the thing, too. Not all of the show takes place in the pub, but I'd say at least like 50%. Every show starts with them walking into Patty's Pub.
And Crown and Anchor Pub and Ted Lasso, which I was watching last night. Movies, I think Roadhouse with a double deuce has to be strong. Roadhouse, double deuce. And we've learned that Mike Craven has not seen Roadhouse. Which
I have not seen Roadhouse.
I think you have to be one of the very few nearing 40-year-old males that I know that have not seen that movie.
Maybe it's just
You've
never.
seen Roadhouse, right?
I've seen Roadhouse, yeah.
Never
But
really.
that was more of a recent, like within the past 3 years, I watched Roadhouse for the first time.
Patrick Swayze at his best. I thought he'd be taller. Of course, Sam Elliott's in that film, too.
I do love Sam Elliott.
Me, too.
Sometimes the bar eats you.
Sometimes the bar eats you. What was I watching yesterday? Because sometimes you'll just you flip through. I'm on one of my Showtime channels. It was Days of Thunder. The last 15 minutes of Days of Thunder, maybe a little longer. When Cole Trickle, Tom Cruise talks Robert Duvall's character into setting his car up for Daytona, baby.
Yeah,
because he wanted to go win that race for Rowdy. That's an old classic too. Says somebody, my buddy texted me and said that the Cheers bar is not the real bar. It's not the same. That's true. There is a Cheers bar in Boston, but it's nowhere. Doesn't look like. If you ever go to it, you're like, doesn't look like the Cheers bar. What are we doing here? But that has been fun this morning. Also on the Buck-Ons and Buck-Offs. Can I give one last Buck-Off here from baseball? I know Craig Way's going to come in here in a good mood because his Dodgers won again last night. They won 6 in a row. I think they set a record for runs scored in a 3-game series. The Phillies went into L.A. and got pummeled. And I think it's true. I think the lifetime Longhorn Cody Clemens pitched in 2 games because they were getting bombed, and they put him in twice. Of course, Roger, his dad, was a pretty good pitcher back in the day. And I think they did, but they won again last night with 10 more runs. Also, Shohei Ohtani joining Babe Ruth. Only people ever with 500 career strikeouts as a pitcher, 100 home runs as a hitter.
He did that pretty quick, huh?
This guy's amazing. I mean, it's breathtaking what this guy does.
Yeah, get him out of Anaheim.
I know. Get him.
As much as I would hate to say it, but get him to New York.
Yeah, he needs to be on a stage.
That would help baseball out.
Yeah,
I mean, in the World Baseball Classic, his striking out of Mike Trout to clinch it was just the climax. It was unbelievable.
That was great.
That was a great piece of theater, sports theater. And, he and Mike Trout kind of languished there with the halos. Mm-hmm. Hey, Mike, buck on to you, man. Thanks so much for coming in here and doing this, and looking forward to more of our Eyes on Texas multicast coming up starting right after Memorial Day, but we'll do this again for sure.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
Mike Craven. It's at Craven Mike on Twitter, so just go last name first. And then Dave Campbell's Texas Football. When does the big edition come out for the preview?
We send it off to press the last day of May, and then it comes out early July, and we'll be announcing the cover on June 5th.
I already know who it is, but I can't tell you. So
Yeah,
how
there
about
you go.
that? Got a little inside scoop. But thank you, Mike. Ty, great stuff. Win some bets tonight. You both got the Warriors tonight, correct?
Yep.
Warriors and the Pirates.
The Pittsburgh Pirates. Rangers and Astros both off today.